Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Sage of Six Paths gives Naruto a Rinnegan part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Kanahigaku no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves, was a peaceful place, a village known for its exceptional ninja, and its accepting and compassionate inhabitants. It was for this reason that many ninja clans flocked to Konoha and called the village home. But underneath this peaceful and accepting surface was a boy, his life shrouded in mystery, and hated by the village he was sacrificed to save. A young boy, no older than 6, ran through the darkened streets of Konoha, weaving in between villagers with practiced ease. The boy's normally spiky blonde hair was matted down with dirt and blood seeping from a wound on the back of his head, his ragged and torn clothes barely hanging on to his malnourished body. A large mob of angry villagers burst from the crowd, each with a makeshift weapon in hand. Seeing the mob, the boy made a break for it down a side alley, the roars of the mob echoing in his ears. Why do they always do this? I haven't done anything, thought the boy as he turned down another alley, hoping to lose the mob before they had a chance to catch him. Sadly, his hopes were for naught as he realized too late that the alley he ran down was a dead end. The light from the street behind began to darken as multiple shadows blocked the way. Slowly turning around, the young boy came face to face with the rage and contempt-filled faces of the mob that had been chasing him. A pink-haired woman stepped forward, pointing a kitchen knife threateningly at the trapped blonde. "Time to die, demon!" she screeched, causing many of the civilians around her to flinch slightly at the volume. "Get him!" The mob didn't need to be told twice. They raced towards the freighted blonde, their makeshift weapons raised to strike. The boy knew only pain as the civilians brought whatever they could use as a weapon down on his frail body. For hours the angry villagers assaulted the boy, beating him, stabbing him, cutting him. By the time they were done, it was hard to tell that the pile of bruised and bleeding flesh was even human. The same pink-haired woman who seemed to be the leader of the mob stalked towards the twisted mangled heap that was once Naruto Uzumaki. "This is the end for you, Kyubi. Finally we will have avenged Minato-kun and everyone you killed 6 years ago," she said, her screeching voice echoing in the alley. She raised the knife she had in her hand and in one swift motion, brought the blade down, embedding it in young Naruto, piercing his right lung. "Alright, now let's get out of here before any ambush show up," she screeched before the mob quickly dispersed. Naruto lay in the alley beaten, broken and dying. The pain he felt from his injuries long forgotten, replaced by the numbing hold of one about to die. Why, he thought as he fought to open his eyes even a little, why do they always do this? What have I done to deserve this? Unknown to the young blonde, a powerful entity was awakening inside of his body and was viewing young Naruto's memories. Naruto's mind. A deep rumbling echoed throughout the dark corners of Naruto's mind as his demonic tenant finished viewing the memories of Naruto's life. "How can these humans do this to a mere child?" said the Kyubi to itself as he turned his gaze to the paling image of Naruto at the base of the seal. "They may call me a demon, but they are the only true monsters in this world. Come on, Kit, you can't die on me like this," mumbled Kyubi before sending his chakra into the boy's body, healing the otherwise fatal wounds he had sustained at the hands of the villagers. Slowly the color began to return to the image of Naruto, and his eyes began to flutter open. The first thing that met Naruto's sapphire gaze was the eerie red glow of the Kyubi's demonic chakra. Where am I?" the newly healed blonde thought as he took in his surroundings. He seemed to be in a sewer of some kind, leaking pipes littered the walls and ceilings and they seemed to give off a strange bluish glow. Struggling to his feet, the blonde Jinchuriki noticed that the eerie glow around him was fading and retreating into what appeared to be a cage that replaced one of the walls of the sewer. Looking into the cage, Naruto saw nothing but a dark expanse that seemed to swallow everything around it. What the he was cut off when two blood-red, slitted eyes snapped open behind the cage, followed shortly by a deep, rumbling voice. "Do not be afraid, little one, I shall not harm you," said the Kyubi when it saw Naruto's panicked expression. The young blonde's panic slowly faded away, only to be replaced by confusion as he continued to look around him, trying to figure out where he was. As if reading his mind, Kyubi gave Naruto the answer he was looking for: "We are in your mind, young one." This only served to confuse the blonde even more as he turned back to face the two red eyes behind the cage. "What do you mean in my mind? How'd I get here?" said Naruto, the last part more to himself, but the Kyubi heard it easily. "The last thing I remember," is his voice trailed off as he tried to focus on what had happened to him earlier. The harder he tried to remember the happenings of just a few hours ago, the more the memories seemed to elude him. "Why can't I remember?" whispered Naruto before meeting the gaze of the two demonic eyes, subconsciously knowing that the owner had the answers he wanted. Understanding exactly what the blonde was silently asking, the Kyubi readied itself for the conversation at hand. "You're wondering why you cannot remember what happened?" Getting a curious nod from the boy, Kyubi continued, "It's simple. I am keeping them from you." But why, they're my memories. I should be allowed to know them, said Naruto, a frown spreading across his face as he glared at the two eyes accusingly. Completely unfazed by the 6-year-old's attempt at intimidation, the QB decided to stop beating around the bush and get right to heart of the conversation. Yes, they are your memories, and yes, you should be allowed to see them, but what you don't understand is what will happen if you do. You see, while we are in your mind, any memory you think about will play out before you, and right now that is the last thing you need to see, said the QB. Seeing Naruto about to retort, QB decided to change the subject. Tell me, young one, what is your name? Caught off guard at the sudden question, Naruto could only blink dumbly for a few seconds before responding. Naruto Uzumaki, he said with pride, his normal personality slowly starting to return. QB smirked slightly at the blonde's attitude. I'm starting to like this gaki more and more. Alright then, tell me, Naruto, do you have a dream, something you would work hard for? It was like a switch had been flipped inside the boy. Naruto's exuberant and happy personality returned with a vengeance, and he stood to his full height, pointing a thumb at his chest. To be Hokage, that's my dream. That way everyone will have to acknowledge me and respect me. I'll become stronger than all of the Hokages combined, you'll see. QB couldn't help it as his smirk widened at the blonde's antics and declaration. Heh, looks like getting him to agree to my idea won't be as hard as I first thought. So you want to be Hokage, must QB allowed, getting another confident nod from the blonde. Well, if you're going to be Hokage, you'll need to train hard, and the first thing you can do is drop that mask of yours. Naruto frowned slightly at that statement. How did this person know about his mask? I don't know what you're talking about, mumbled the blonde, looking away from the red eyes that were watching him closely. You know very well what I am talking about. You may be able to hide it from everyone else, but I have seen the memories of your life through your own eyes. You cannot hide your true self from me, kid, and it's time you stopped hiding it from yourself, QB said with more force than he had intended. Despite his little slip, he got the response he wanted. Naruto met his gaze again, but this time the enthusiastic spark in his eyes had dimmed. Good, now I have a proposition for you. The young blonde raised an eyebrow in interest, silently asking for the QB to continue. I would like to train you, so that what happened tonight will not happen again. But be warned, should you agree to the training, you will do exactly as I say with no arguing, understand? For several minutes, Naruto stood motionless before the QB's cage, silently debating whether or not to accept the offer. On the one hand, he was being offered a chance to be trained by someone who was obviously powerful, if the aura around him was any indication. But on the other hand, he had no idea who this person was, and they wouldn't even let him view his own memories, though if the nagging feeling the back of his mind was right, he probably didn't want to know. Naruto debated over this for a few more minutes before finally meeting the QB's gaze once again, a spark of determination burning in his eyes. I accept your offer. QB smiled, his first true smile in over 50 millennia. Very well then, we will begin tomorrow after your body has fully recovered from tonight. Now I believe I forgot to introduce myself. I am the QB no Kitsune, the nine-tailed fox, and my name is Kurama. Naruto froze when Kurama introduced himself. He couldn't believe the person, or fox in this case, before him was the most powerful being in existence. The QB no Kitsune, but how? Hokage Gigi said the yandere killed you, shouted Naruto, as he slowly began to back away from the cage. Kurama sighed, knowing this had been coming since the start of the conversation. No, Naruto, as you can plainly see, I am not dead. The yandere couldn't kill me. No human has the power to kill a bijou. But he did the next best thing. He sealed me away inside of you. You are what are known as a Jinchuriki, a human sacrificed in order to protect others. That is the reason the people of this village hate you. They do not see an innocent child, they see only what I have done to them. I am truly sorry you have been forced to live this life, a life I wouldn't wish upon even the most foul creatures, said Kurama, his sorrow and regret plain in his voice. In that moment, Naruto saw the QB for what it really was, a misunderstood being, forced into being what they were at birth, the same as himself. Completely forgetting his previous fear, Naruto slowly approached the cage before passing through the bars without hesitation. Kurama's eyes snapped open when he felt something small touch his snout. Naruto stood before him, slowly petting his reddish-orange fur, completely unafraid that he was now completely vulnerable. We're the same. We were both made what we are at birth, we had no control over that. But what we do have control over is what we do with what we were given, said Naruto as he looked Kurama in the eye. So when do we start that training? He said with a smirk. Kurama smirked in return. We'll start first thing tomorrow, but for now go home and rest. Oh, and you might want to pull the knife in your lung out, said the QB before Naruto was ejected from his mind. Naruto sat bolt upright, his breathing raged. What the hell? He thought before he was suddenly hit with a flood of memories. The mob, the beating, the knife in his chest, everything came back to him like he had never forgotten. Damn them, one day they'll pay for what they did. mumbled Naruto before he noticed the black handle of the kitchen knife sticking out of his flesh. Grabbing onto the handle, Naruto slowly started pulling the blade out, feeling the injury heal as he did. When the blade was finally out, Naruto watched in fascination as the remainder of the wound healed itself, not even leaving a scar. "Kurama, did you do that?" he asked out loud. "Yes, Kit, I did, and don't talk out loud. If you want to speak to me, then just think it. Oh, and keep that knife with you, let it serve as a remainder of this night to help motivate you to improve faster," said the voice of the Kyuubi no Kitsune from inside Naruto's head. "Alright, well, I guess I'd better get back home. It's probably safe to assume you have a busy day planned for me tomorrow," thought Naruto as he started to slowly make his way home, being sure to avoid the main roads and sticking to alleyways. "Kit, you have no idea," thought Kurama to himself before curling up in his cage and falling asleep. The next morning, Naruto awoke to the sun shining in his eyes through a tear in his curtains. Cracking one eye open, he slowly sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Alright, Gaki, get ready real fast and then find a secluded place where I can train you," said the demonic voice of Kurama inside of the young blonde's head. Said blonde's eyes shot open in excitement before he jumped out of bed and bolted for the bathroom. Going through his usual morning ritual, Naruto quickly brushed his teeth, took a shower before going to his closet to put on some clothes. Opening his closet revealed a sea of orange of jumpsuits with a few shirts and pants hanging off to the side. "No way in hell is my Jinchuriki going to be caught dead wearing that. Put on some of those darker clothes that are hanging off to the side," said Kurama, annoyed that his host had such unsuitable clothing. Not wanting to anger his new sensei, Naruto grabbed a pair of black baggy cargo pants and a skin-tight black t-shirt. After he was dressed, Naruto went to his kitchen to prepare some breakfast, only to be stopped by his new sensei when he opened his cupboards. "Don't even think of eating any of that ramen crap. Go out and get something nutritious and healthy to eat." Naruto couldn't stop the frown that crossed his lips before trying to explain this to his sensei. "Trust me, Kurama, I would if I could. Ramen is great and all, but it gets old after eating it so many times. But there's a reason why it's the only thing I ever eat. The stores and markets refuse to sell me anything else, and the only restaurant that will let me in is the ramen stand at Tuchijiji, and I am Nizanon." "Well, Kit, it looks like it's time for your first lesson to begin. I want you to sneak into a store and steal some fruit for breakfast. This will help you work on your stealth and infiltration skills as a shinobi," said Kurama, taking up his role as a sensei very naturally. Naruto would have argued, but thought better of it, and just decided to go along with it. Exiting his apartment, Naruto made sure the door was locked before he started making his way towards the market district, which was close to opening. Arriving at the main road of the village, Naruto quickly hid in an alley and watched the shops for even a slight opening to snag himself something to eat. After 20 agonizing minutes, not helped in the slightest by his growling stomach, Naruto saw an opening when a shop owner went into his back room for something. Not willing to pass up the opportunity, the young blonde ran towards the store, careful not to be seen, and slipped inside without jostling the bell on the door. Taking a quick look around for where his targets were, Naruto saw a stand with fruit crates, unfortunately sitting right next to the door to the back room. Hesitating for only a second, Naruto quickly made his way across the shop and grabbed a few pieces of fruit, storing them in his pockets. A triumphant smirk appeared on his lips as he patted himself on the back for a job well done, only for his eyes to widen when he heard the handle on the door next to him jiggle. His breath caught in his throat as the door opened slightly and a foot appeared from the doorway, pushing the door the rest of the way open. Reacting on pure instinct, Naruto slid himself in between the fruit stand and a stand of vegetables to keep from being seen. Fortunately for him, the storekeeper was busy lifting 3 large boxes and grumbling to himself to take notice. Watching the man walk away with his load, Naruto quickly slipped into the back room and found a door leading out into an alley. Smiling to himself at his first bit of successful training, Naruto took out a pear from his pocket and took a bite out of it. "Not bad, Kit, but had the man not been preoccupied at the time, he would have spotted you easily. We'll have to work on your stealth some more during our training," said Kurama, raining on Naruto's parade. "Alright, Kurama-sensei," sighed the blonde as he slowly made his way towards a training ground he knew no one ever used. Training ground 43. 10 minutes later. "Alright, Kurama-sensei, what are we doing first?" asked Naruto once he was seated in the middle of a fairly large training ground, overlooking what appeared to be a dark forest surrounded by a barbed wire fence. "First, we need to assess your skill level. I trust you have been taught how to access your chakra, right?" Naruto outwardly nodded. "Yeah, we just learned to do that at the academy." "Alright then, I want you to focus and draw out as much of your chakra as possible." Nodding in understanding, Naruto formed the ram's seal and began focusing on his chakra. Seconds became minutes, and just as Kurama was about to give Naruto some advice, said blonde released a massive amount of chakra, easily matching an average chunin. "Damn, I knew the kid would have large reserves, but what he's putting out right now should be impossible for his age, even for a Jinchuriki," thought Kurama as he continued to watch his new pupil draw on his chakra. So he has monstrous reserves but not much control over it. That's about all I can test him in right now. He hasn't learned anything else in that academy that could be useful right now. Alright Kit, that's enough, said Kurama as his host slowly stopped drawing out his chakra. So how'd I do, sensei? Asked Naruto, momentarily forgetting to speak in his mind. Not bad Kit, your chakra reserves are extremely large for your age, but your control over it is pathetic, said Kurama, not even trying to sugarcoat things for his Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded in understanding. It explained why he couldn't sense much when the other kids flared their chakra in class and why the senseis there panicked when he flared his. Since your chakra control is so bad, we'll start with that. Now I want you to grab multiple leaves and stick them to your body with chakra. Wordlessly standing up, Naruto walked over to one of the many trees that surrounded the training ground and picked up a handful of fallen leaves. Moving back to his original position, Naruto sat down and placed the leaves all over his body before trying to get them to stick with chakra. Surprisingly, the task proved much easier than Naruto had expected, but he was only able to make a few stick while others were fluttering an inch off of body. Just as I thought, with his large reserves it's difficult for him to use small amounts of chakra, but by using more chakra at once to learn control, we can slowly begin to decrease the amount chakra he uses, thought Kurama as he watched as a few more leaves stuck to the blonde's body. Slowly the hours went by, and Naruto still remained in his position in the middle of the training ground, over 20 leaves sticking to his body. Hey, it's starting to get easier, thought Naruto when he felt the drain on his chakra slowly begin to decrease. Kurama noticed this as well and decided it was time to increase the difficulty. Kit, stop with the exercise for now. Slightly confused at why his sensei wanted him to stop, Naruto slowly let the leaves fall from his body before returning his attention to his tenant. We're going to make things harder for you. I want you to stick 4 leaves to your body. But you have to make them stick at your wrist and at your ankles, 1 for each. This will force you to spread your chakra evenly throughout your body, while at the same time forcing you to decrease the amount of chakra you are using. Nodding in understanding, the blonde picked up 4 leaves and put 1 on each of his ankles, then 1 on each wrist before trying to make them stick to his body again. This task proved to be easier said than done as Naruto was having enough trouble just getting his chakra to spread throughout his body evenly. Come on, why isn't this working? Thought Naruto as he kept trying to force more and more chakra through his coils. Minutes passed and still the blonde was unable to stick the 4 leaves to his body. Frustrated, Naruto tried once again to force his chakra to spread throughout his body, only to cry out in pain as a burning sensation spread over his body. Opening his eyes, Naruto saw several vibrant red lines burning under his skin on his arms. Checking over the rest of his body, Naruto saw the same red lines everywhere as burning sensations slowly died down. What the hell was that? That was you trying to force too much chakra through your coils at once. Chakra is a part of you, it is an extension of your physical and spiritual being, you cannot force it to do anything. You must let it flow, you must feel your chakra inside you and will it to do what you want. Naruto was slightly taken aback by the intensity in his sensei's voice while he lectured him, or his mistake, but nodded nonetheless. For now meditate, it will let your body heal and will allow you to work on communing with your chakra, said Kurama as he took a few calming breaths. He too was surprised at the force he used as he lectured Naruto, but let it go as nothing. Following his sensei's instructions, Naruto relaxed his body and began to meditate to allow his body to heal and to commune with his chakra. As time began to pass, Naruto was slowly getting deeper and deeper into his meditative state, his sensei watching over him as he did. Naruto's eye snapped open when he felt something collide with him, but to his utter shock, he was no longer in the middle of the training ground. He seemed to be floating in the middle of a white expanse that had no end. Crimson-red veins littered the area around him, but it was the giant ball of blue energy that was kept lashing out in random intervals that had his attention. That is your chakra Kit, said the voice of Kurama from behind the blonde. Whirling around, Naruto saw the Kyuubi no Kitsune in all his glory standing behind him. Where are we, Kurama? What happened? Asked Naruto, his shock at the current situation clear in his voice. We are in your mind, Kit, said the mighty fox as he observed the area around them. My mind? But wait, I thought my mind looked like a sewer, not this, Naruto said, his confusion growing. True, but we are much deeper into your mind now, we are at your core. The sewer you saw before was only the surface of your mind, a defense mechanism that you subconsciously created to protect yourself, Kurama said as a look of slight understanding crossed Naruto's face. What you see before you is the core of your being. The veins that mark this area is my chakra inside of you, that giant blue orb is your chakra. As you can tell, it is wild and uncontrolled. If you wish to become a stronger ninja, you will have to learn to control and commune with your chakra properly. With that, Kurama vanished from Naruto's core, leaving behind a confused blonde. Turning to his now identified core, Naruto watched as it continued to thrash uncontrollably. his sensei's words ringing through his mind as he continued to watch the uncontrolled chakra lash out. I must commune with my core, he thought before he slowly approached the unstable mass of chakra. My chakra is a part of me, it is an extension of who I am. Slowly, Naruto reached his hand out and placed it on the outer surface of his chakra. Instantly, warmth spread over his body as he was pulled into the chakra core. I must let my chakra flow, but bend at my will. His core began to slowly stabilize itself, its thrashing becoming less and less frequent as it slowly formed into a perfect sphere around the young blonde. Naruto couldn't believe what he was experiencing. His skin was tingling from the sensation of being one with his chakra, and for the first time in his life, he truly felt at peace. Kurama watched all of this from the seal and he couldn't help the smirk that graced his features as his host began to commune with his chakra. He finally figured it out, he certainly has the potential to become great. The fox continued to watch over his host's body as he continued his meditation, a frown slowly replacing his smirk as a feeling of sudden doom spread through his body. For some reason, I can't shake the feeling that something will happen to the boy, something disastrous. I just hope this doesn't turn out like the last time I had this feeling. 2 years later. Standing in the middle of his usual training ground was Naruto Uzumaki, completely unmoving, and looking for the entire world like he was relaxing. His eyes snapped open suddenly and he began what appeared to be a kata for a taijutsu style. The young blonde moved effortlessly through every punch, kick and feint. If anyone had been watching him, they probably would have thought he was dancing more than training. Ending with a quick side kick, Naruto returned to his relaxed position and began to relax from the training. Alright Kit, that's enough for today, said the Kyuubi from his cage inside of the blonde's mind. You have done well today, Kit. Go treat yourself to some ramen. Naruto perked up at that and after finishing his cooldown, ran off towards his favorite ramen stand. Naruto ignored the usual glares he got from the villagers, too excited about having some of the most heavenly ramen on the planet. When the familiar ramen stand came into view, Naruto ran the rest of the way and rushed right into the stand before taking a seat at the bar. Hey Tsuchijiji, I am Mizan, said to the father-daughter pair that owned the small stand. Hey Naruto, finish your training for the day? Asked Tsuchi with a smile at the blonde Jinchuriki. Returning the smile, Naruto nodded in the affirmative. Yeah, I just finished, so I thought I'd come by and get some of your heavenly ramen, old man. Tsuchi gave a deep chuckle before going into the back to get ready to make the Naruto's ramen. So Naruto-kun, what will you have today? Asked Ayam. 5 bowls of miso ramen please. Ayam nodded before turning to the small window into the back room. 5 miso, Dad, she shouted. Coming right up, Tsuchi shouted back from the kitchen. Naruto smiled as he and Ayam started talking about anything and everything under the sun, while Tsuchi cooked Naruto's ramen. I guess this is what having a family feels like, thought Naruto as he and Ayam continued to talk with Tsuchi joining them after placing Naruto's order in front of him. It continued this way for hours, even after Naruto had finished his ramen. He refused to leave the small stand or the people he thought of as family. Hey Naruto, said Tsuchi bringing the blondes and his attention to him. They were slightly unnerved by the unusually serious expression the normally jovial ramen chef had on, but paid attention nonetheless. What do you think of the idea joining our family? Naruto couldn't believe his ears. The man he thought of as a father figure had just asked him if he would like to join his family. The thought of having an actual family was a little much for the blonde, who was silently crying a few tears of joy. Ayam saw the tears and immediately went around the counter to give Naruto a hug. Shh, it's okay Naruto-kun, she whispered. Naruto held on to her as if his life depended on it. He was just so overwhelmed that he might actually get to have a family. After a few minutes, Naruto managed to calm enough so that he could speak again. Did you really mean it, old man? You want me to join your family? Tsuchi smiled at the boy and rubbed his head a little. Of course I mean it, Naruto. I've always wanted a son and Ayam here has always wanted a little brother she can dote on. So what do you say, want join the Ichiraku family? Naruto could only nod a yes, his emotions overcoming him again. Ayam squealed in excitement, tightening her hold on Naruto, while Tsuchi laughed at the sight. The family-to-be was brought out of their happy thoughts by the sound of voice from the front of the store. Well, isn't this just the sweetest thing, sneered a Jounin as he entered the ramen stand. The 3 occupants turned to the sound of the voice only to come face to face with no less than 5 Chunin being led by the Jounin who spoke. It looks like the 2 of you are more deranged than I thought, offering that demon a place in your family. How pathetic, he scoffed. With a quick hand signal, 2 of the Chunin shot forward and grabbed Tsuchi and Ayam, throwing them to the floor in front of the Jounin, while a third restrained Naruto. You know, people like you disgust me. Associating with filth like that demon, befouling the pure streets of our village, how can you live with yourself? Said the Jounin, his voice holding nothing but contempt for the 2 civilians in front of him. And you, he said turning his attention to Naruto, you don't even deserve to live, you wretched demon, and yet you walk our village, mocking us with your very presence. Well, now it's our turn. You killed our family and loved ones all those years ago, and now we'll return the favor. Naruto's eyes widened in fear before he started struggling against the man holding him down, his heart breaking at the thought of losing Teuchi and Ayam. You know what to do, said the Jounin, turning to the remaining two Chunin behind him. They nodded before they both pulled out a kunai and stalked towards the two trapped civilians. No! Screamed Naruto as he finally managed to free one of his arms from his attacker. Elbowing the man in the face, Naruto broke out of his loosened hold and charged the Chunin who were only a few inches away from their victims. Before he could do anything though, he was knocked into the back wall by the Jounin, and the three Chunin grabbed him and held him back. You think you can stop us, demon? The Jounin said with a twisted smirk on his face. I guess you trying to save these two disgraces is to be expected. After all, who else would be stupid enough to befriend a demon? Leave them alone. If you want to kill someone, kill me! Screamed Naruto as he continued to thrash and struggle against the Chunin. Oh, believe me, we will kill you, but those two have to go first. Hokage-sama was very specific with his instructions. Let the demon know the pain of lose that he has caused to our village before you kill him. Make him feel the same pain we felt when he killed our loved ones by killing his loved ones. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. Hokage-Gigi ordered them to do this. Inside the seal, Kurama was cursing up a storm. Kami, damn it, I hate it when those feelings of mine are right. I can't do a thing to help, damn you Yandame Hokage. Kid, come on, you have to stop them. If you don't, something big is gonna happen. But it was too late. The Jounin had given the order to the two Chunin, and the so willingly carried out the deed. Time to stop for Naruto as he watched as his future family was taken from him. Teuchi didn't even flinch as the blade slit his throat, his rage at the perpetrators permanently etched on his face. Ayam managed to turn around in time to face Naruto, but she couldn't stop the kunai that pierced her heart. As she fell to the floor, she one last thing with her dying breath, Naruto, I love you, Otuto. Naruto world shattered. Hearing Ayam call him her Otuto was too much. His body fell limp as he stopped struggling against his captives. The lifeless bodies of Teuchi and Ayam burned into his memory. Teuchi, Gigi, Ayam Mizan, I loved you guys like you were my family, thought Naruto with head down, his hair casting a shadow over his eyes. This village, this cursed village has taken my only true family from me, and someone I considered family was the one to order it, unknown to anyone but Kurama. Something inside of Naruto was awakening, something long thought to be myth. How does it feel, demon, to have those you care for taken from you? Now you know the pain you brought to this village, and now we will take our revenge for you have done. Iruka, Kotetsu, Izumo, hold him up, I want to see the life leave him when I kill him. The three Chunin holding Naruto smirked at their superior's command before they forced Naruto into a standing position, his hair still shadowing his eyes. Inside the seal, Kurama was frozen in shock at what was taking place just a few feet away from him. The leaky pipes that resembled Naruto's chakra coils were sealing themselves and his chakra was flowing much more steadily inside them. But the thing that held the fox's attention was the silhouette of a man that was slowly approaching his cage. The only things that could be seen on the silhouette were the monk staff he carried and the necklace with 6 blood-red magatama he wore. Unlike the rest of body, however, his eyes were clear as day, a metallic purple with a dot-like pupil with 4 concentric circles surrounding it, giving them a rippling effect. Kurama, it's good to see you again, my child, said the figure once he was standing in front of the seal. Sage Gigi, whispered the Kyuubi no Kitsune in awe. Wait, you're dead. We watched you die in front of us. Yes, my child, I have indeed crossed over to the other side. But have you forgotten, my son, he who holds the Rinnegan is above the cycle of life and death. With the last of my chakra I have sent my spirit back to this plane because I sensed my true heir was about to awaken his birthright, the silhouette said, causing the Kyuubi's eyes to widen in realization. Are you saying that the kid is your heir? Yes, my child, and it is time that he receive my blessing. The silhouette raised his staff slightly before tapping it on the floor. A ringing echoed throughout the seal before it started to shift. The dark, dreary walls of the cell became 3 torii gates with wooden pillars filling the normal gate openings, while the bars of the cell became wooden and the paper seal was replaced with a spiral lock. This new seal will prevent you from being absorbed into my air like his father intended. Instead, it will allow the boy to commune with your chakra much easier and with training learn to control it. Kurama, my eldest son, I am entrusting you with my heir. Protect him, and when he is ready tell him what must be done in order to gain full control over your power. Kurama could do little more than nod as the ghostly figure began to slowly fade. Before I leave, there's one more thing I must ask of you, my son. Anything, the fox said without hesitation. There is another with my eyes, though they are not his by birth. He is part of an evil force that is gaining strength in the shadows. From the other side I have watched them and I have learned of their horrifying plan, said the silhouette, his eyes downcast. They plan to revive your mother, the Jubi. Kurama's body went rigid. He knew that there was only one way to revive the Jubi, and if it was successful he would cease to exist. My son, my firstborn, I beg of you, find your brothers and sisters. Only when the 9 chosen Jinchuriki fight as one, will this world have a chance at survival. The ghostly form faded away into nothingness, but a soft whisper managed to reach the ears of the Kyubi before it did. Be strong, my son, and know that I will always love you. For the first time since his birth, Kurama shed a single tear. I won't fail you, and I will always love you too, father. Back in the real world, Naruto tears continued to fall as the Jounin and the 2 Chunin who killed his future family approached. The Jounin pulled out a kunai once he close enough to the grieving blonde. Raise your head, demon. I want to see your eyes before you die, taunted the Jounin. The blonde Jinchuriki made no indication that he heard the Jounin and just continued to cry over the loss of his family. Fine, if you won't look me in the eye, willingly will do it for you, Kotetsu. Said Chunin, nodded in understanding before grabbing Naruto's blonde locks and yanking his head up. The sight that met the 3 shinobi facing the blonde was not what they were expecting. Gone were the warm sapphire eyes that Naruto was known for, replaced by a metallic purple that spread over his entire eye, sclera and all. His pupil was replaced with a small black dot with a single concentric ring around it. The Jounin and 2 Chunin were brought out of their shocked stupor by the sound of the blonde speaking, though his voice not entirely his own. You 6 are a disgrace to my teachings and the ways of the ninja. Now you must pay for your crimes against my heir and for your disgracing of my teachings. Naruto's eyes seemed to glow as a ghostly silhouette appeared above his body. The silhouette had the same eyes as him, only with 4 circles around the pupil along with a Magatama necklace and monk staff. The 3 rookie Chunin holding Naruto dropped his body from fear at this sudden change and quickly fled from the stand, fearing for their lives. You cowards, you'll pay for this! The Jounin shouted when he saw the 3 flee. No, it is you who shall pay, said the altered voice of Naruto as a small black rod appeared in his hand. Lunging forward, Naruto impaled the Chunin who had killed Tsuchi in the heart before turning his attention to the Chunin who had killed Ayam. Said shinobi tried to run, but Naruto merely raised his left hand towards the Chunin while forming another black rod in his right. Ban's Hotenin, the blonde whispered before the Chunin felt himself being pulled backwards by an unseen force, impaling him on the black rod in Naruto's hand. The Jounin who had led the group watched this with a mixture of awe and fear in his eyes. First the demon had seemingly created a weapon out of thin air before killing one of his men, and now he had seemingly pulled the other Chunin towards him and impaled him on another of those weird rods. Before he had a chance to even consider fleeing, the Jounin found himself on the floor with Naruto standing over him, the silhouette giving him an ethereal appearance. Please spare me, begged the Jounin as sweat began to appear over his body. Did you show mercy to an innocent child? Did you show mercy to the 2 civilians you had murdered? The Jounin couldn't answer, his fear stealing his voice from him. Those who do not show mercy do not deserve mercy, Naruto said as he raised his right hand and pointed it at the Jounin chest, Shinra Tensei. It happened in an instant. 1 second the Jounin was begging for mercy and the next, his body was nothing more than a pancake on the floor. Naruto looked at the bodies of those he killed with indifference before his new eyes landed on the forms of Tsuchi and Ayam. A single tear fell from Naruto's eyes as he used his newfound ability to control gravity to make a makeshift grave for the 2. Placing the 2 corpses into the grave, Naruto smiled sadly as his hands went through a series of hand seals he didn't even know. Tsuchi, I am Mizan, I love you. Rest in peace, and one day we will be together again, as a family. Katan, Fireball Jutsu. Bringing his right hand to his mouth, Naruto spewed out a small ball of fire that burned the bodies of Tsuchi and Ayam, a funeral befitting royalty. Naruto turned to the exit of the small stand, debating whether or not to pursue the 3 that had escaped. No, their time will come. For now I need to leave, he said as he made his way towards the back room planning on using the alleyway to escape. He paused mid-step though, and turned back to the 3 corpses of shinobi that lay on the floor. Walking up to one of the Chunin, he bent down and removed the man's headband. Staring at the leaf symbol engraved into the metal, reaching behind him, Naruto pulled out the same knife that had been stabbed into his lung the night he almost died. In one swift motion, Naruto slashed the leaf symbol on the headband with the knife in the same manner that many Rouge ninja did. Putting the knife back, Naruto tied the headband around his forehead and quickly left through the back alleyway, heading in the direction of the main gate. Just outside of Konohagakure. Walking down a path that led to the main gate of Konohagakure no Sato was the fabled Toad Sage himself, Jiraiya of the Sannin. A slight breeze ruffled his long spiky white hair that he kept in a ponytail, stopping the Toad Sage in his tracks. He had learned long ago to trust his instincts, and thanks to his training with the great Toad Sage of Mount Myobokuzen, he had come to understand the strange methods that nature would use to signify something. The wind is changing, thought the Toad Sage as he watched the leaves fluttering in the wind. A great change has happened, but the question is what? His answer came to him when he saw a young boy maybe 8 years old running towards him. The boy stopped a few yards away from him, panting slightly. He had on a black skin-tight shirt that was ripped in a couple places. His black baggy pants seemed to be stained with blood, but what caught the Toad Sage's attention was his face. Spiky blonde hair stuck up in every direction on top of his head, while metallic purple eyes stared back at him with a dot-like pupil. The Rinnegan. To think that I would see those eyes again in this life. But how is it possible that this boy has those eyes? Thought Jiraiya as he continued to observe the boy, his eyes darting to the slashed Konoha headband on the boy's forehead. What, he's too young to have graduated already, and he doesn't even have any standard genin equipment. Who is this boy? The sage kept looking for any identifying marks on the boy's body, but his eyes widened when he saw the familiar whisker-like marks on the boy's face. Naruto? Jiraiya whispered in shock. How do you know who I am? Asked Naruto as his Rinnegan began to glow slightly. Jiraiya saw the glow and immediately understood what it meant. I don't mean you any harm, I just want to talk. My name is Jiraiya, and I know who you are because my sensei was the Sandaime Hokage. You interrupted more than one of our meetings, he said with a chuckle at the end. You were taught by that backstabbing traitor? Naruto said, his contempt for the man clear in his voice. Jiraiya was once again shocked. The last time he had seen Naruto, the boy cared so much for the Sandaime. What the hell have you done now, sensei? Thought Jiraiya as he knelt down to be at Naruto's level. What happened? Asked the Toad Sage, fearing the worst. The last student he had only activated the Rinnegan because of a traumatic event. Could this be the change the wind predicted? Naruto didn't speak for a few seconds, silently determining whether or not to trust this man. Tell him, Kit, he may be a student of that traitorous Kage, but I can sense that he truly cares for you, Kurama said, unwilling to let his host make a foolish mistake. You will need a human sensei to teach you what I cannot. If what I sense is true, this man not only cares for you, but is powerful enough to help you become stronger. Outwardly Naruto nodded in understanding, making Jiraiya think he came to a decision. Alright, I'll tell you. The Sandaime Hokage ordered a team of 5 Chunin led by a Jounin to kill me, but not before they killed the 2 people who had just offered to adopt me. Naruto's voice broke slightly at the mention of Tsuchi and Ayam, but continued on. The last thing I remember before blacking out was watching 2 of the Chunin kill Tsuchijiji and Ayam Nizan. When I came to, the Jounin leading the group was dead as well as the 2 Chunin who carried out the deed. Konoha has proven that they will never accept me, and if they won't accept me as an ally, then they will have to deal with me as an enemy. Naruto slipped into his taijutsu stance, making his intentions clear that if Jiraiya tried to take him back he wouldn't go quietly. Jiraiya remained silent throughout Naruto's story and couldn't keep the look of utter shock off of his face. Sarutobi-sensei, what the hell have you done? Thought Jiraiya as he started off into space, trying to understand what the hell could have happened. Seeing Naruto in a taijutsu stance, Jiraiya made up his mind on the spot and got up, the winds of change blowing once again. Alright kid, come with me, I'll take you away from here. Naruto seemed slightly surprised at this, but after a mental nudge from Kurama, agreed to go with the Toad Sage. Whatever Konoha has done, whether on Sensei's order or not, is unforgivable. They have betrayed Minato's legacy, and doing so, betrayed me as well. Minato, if you can hear me, I swear to you I will make Naruto a shinobi to surpass all others, and maybe even surpass the Sage of the 6 Paths himself. Naruto and Jiraiya were walking along one of the more deserted roads in the Land of Fire, heading south towards Tanzakugai. The two traveled in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. What have you done, sensei? How could you have betrayed Minato and I so easily? Thought Jiraiya as he glanced at the young blonde that was with him. Even though he's a Jinchuriki, I can't any excess chakra coming off of his body. But what's more confusing is his Rinnegan. It only has 1 ring around the pupil, but when I found Nagato his eyes had 4 rings. Could it be that Naruto has a different kind of Rinnegan? While Jiraiya was focused on trying to solve the mystery behind Naruto's eyes, Naruto was having a conversation with Kurama. I don't get it, Kurama. Why does it feel like something is eating away at my chakra? Asked the blonde. Kurama took a minute to respond, curious about that himself. It's your eyes, Kit. You need to quit channeling your chakra into them. Nodding in understanding, Naruto closed his eyes and focused on stopping the flow of chakra to his eyes. When he felt the drain on his chakra stop, he opened his eyes again, and they were back to their normal sapphire. Hey Naruto, Jiraiya said, getting the blonde's attention, when we reach Tanzakugai, we'll start your training with a quick assessment of what you're already capable of. After that I'll give you an exercise to do while I go back to Konoha. Naruto frowned at the mention of his old village. Why are you going back there? You going to go see the Hokage or something? Jiraiya nodded the affirmative, a frown on his face as well. Yeah, I want some answers and the Hokage is the only one who has the answers. Naruto seemed to accept this, and the two continued the rest of the way in a comfortable silence. It was a few more hours before the two travelers walked over a hill and saw Tanzakugai in the distance. We're here, Tanzakugai, said Jiraiya as the two continued on into the village. It didn't take long for them to find a suitable hotel to stay at for a while. After paying the owner for a week's-long stay, Jiraiya led Naruto back into the woods around the village. Stopping in a clearing not too far from the town, Jiraiya turned to his newest apprentice. Alright Gaki, let's see what you can do. Lesson 1 Taijutsu. Naruto quickly slipped into his opening stance before charging the Toad Sage, going for a quick right jab. A straightforward attack. Well, I guess that's to be expected from a little kid, thought Jiraiya as he moved to block the jab, only to be forced to duck under a kick at the last second. A feint, that kind of taijutsu isn't taught at the academy, Jiraiya thought in surprise as he prepared to block a spin kick to the ribs but received a roundhouse to the side of his head. Stumbling back slightly, Jiraiya stared at Naruto in surprise before he smirked. Despite his age, his taijutsu is very advanced and very unique. Not many people can make use of a style like this if it's used correctly, and even fewer know how to counter. Not willing to take another hit like that, Jiraiya decided to end things quick. Moving to block another feint, Jiraiya easily shifted to block the true attack and threw Naruto away. Not bad Gaki, your taijutsu is pretty advanced for your age. But you rely too much on feints to get your hits. Any skilled ninja will be able to see that and come up with an effective counter. However, if you use less feints and mix them into a direct style, your attacks will be almost impossible to predict and even harder to counter, Jiraiya said once Naruto had picked himself up. Said blonde nodded in understanding. Kurama had told him the same thing on more than one occasion. Alright, now let's test your genjutsu. Actually Jiraiya-sensei, I suck at genjutsu. My chakra control isn't good enough for me to place even the simplest genjutsu, and I can't even break out of the simplest ones either, Naruto said with a slight frown. Jiraiya furrowed his eyebrow at this. Something doesn't make sense. If his chakra control is as bad as he says it is, then he should have a good amount of chakra flowing out of his body. That's when he noticed something different about Naruto, more specifically his eyes. Naruto, what happened to your Rinnegan? He said in utter shock. Oh, there was this weird drain on my chakra from my eyes, so I cut the flow, Naruto said in a matter-of-fact tone. Stop the flow of chakra to his eyes. Could he be able to deactivate his Rinnegan at will like the Sharingan or Byakugan? Naruto, send some chakra to your eyes. Naruto closed his eyes and focused a little bit of his chakra into his eyes, only just realizing how much easier it was for him to use his chakra. What the hell? Naruto thought before he opened his eyes, revealing the metallic purple with one ring. So I was right, his Rinnegan is different than Nagato's. Alright Gaki, I'm going to put a basic genjutsu on you and I want you to break out of it, Jiraiya said before performing two hand seals, causing the world around Naruto blur slightly before stabilizing. When Naruto looked around, nothing had changed, but there was a slight blue glow around him. Hey Kurama, what's with the blue glow? That's the chakra forming the genjutsu around you. Your Rinnegan must be able to see through genjutsu like the Sharingan and Byakugan. Now try and dispel it by disrupting your chakra flow. Naruto closed his eyes while forming the ram's seal and focused on his chakra. Feeling it flowing through his body, he quickly stopped it, immediately releasing the genjutsu. Naruto looked down in surprise as everything blurred again before returning to normal with Jiraiya standing in front of him. How the heck did I do that? My sensei in the academy said it was impossible for me to dispel genjutsu. Jiraiya remained silent as he thought this over himself. It must be your Rinnegan. When you awakened it, it must have granted you perfect control over your chakra. It seems that your eyes hold many secrets, and you'll have to be the one to discover them. For now though, let's finish your test. Lesson 3, Ninjutsu. Tell me all of the jutsu you know how to use. Let's see. I know the transformation, the idea behind the substitution, and one weird jutsu I don't even remember learning, said Naruto after a few moments of thought. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at that last bit. A jutsu he doesn't even remember learning? Alright Gaki, show them to me. No sooner had he finished than was he looking at an exact copy of himself. Not bad kid, your transformation's pretty good. Now try the substitution, but don't be disappointed if you don't get it on the first try. Naruto dropped the transformation and formed the hand seals they were taught in the academy for the substitution. Focusing on a nearby rock, Naruto vanished in a poof of smoke only to reappear where the rock once was. Incredible, he was able to perform a jutsu he had never tried before with such perfection. Could his eyes have played a part in that? Jiraiya thought as Naruto walked back over to him. Okay kid, now try that one weird jutsu you were talking about. Naruto closed his eyes to help focus before raising his right hand towards some trees, Shinra Tensei. The minute the words passed his lips, an unseen force ripped the ground apart before completely uprooting the trees his hand was facing. Whoa, was all Naruto could say when he saw how much damage his jutsu had done. Jiraiya was no better, but he managed to recover from surprise much faster than the blonde. It looks like he has already unlocked the first of the paths that the sage was famous for. Deciding to test the theory, Jiraiya turned to the still stunned blonde. Hey Naruto, think hard on this. Where did you learn that jutsu? It was a few minutes before Naruto answered his sensei, Deva Path, he whispered in confusion. Turning to his new sensei, Naruto saw a look of understanding on his face. Sensei, what the heck is a Deva Path? According to legend, it was one of the 6 paths that the sage of the 6 paths was said to use. I don't know the names of all of them, but it's safe to assume that when your need is greatest your eyes will unlock the other paths, said Jiraiya before he turned and motioned for Naruto to follow him back to town. Alright Naruto, I'm going to head to Konoha tonight, so tomorrow I want you to practice with your 3 jutsu. Transform yourself to look like some of the villagers, but try and do it with only a short glance at them, which will also help increase your observation skills. For your substitution, work on decreasing the time it takes you to perform them. Your Shinra Tensei, however, I want you to work using it with as little chakra as possible. Once you do that for a few hours, meditate in the room until I return. Once I'm back, your real training will begin. By the time Jiraiya had finished explaining what he wanted Naruto to do while he was gone, they had made it back to the hotel. Walking into the room they rented, Naruto immediately went to one of the beds and got ready to sleep, wanting all the rest he could get for his training tomorrow. Jiraiya watched all this from the doorway. Once he was certain Naruto had fallen asleep, he quietly left the room and made his way towards the edge of town. Sensei, you better have a damn good explanation for this, or I swear Konoha will be down its last sannin, Jiraiya thought before he disappeared in a burst of speed. Konohagakure no Sato. The next morning, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat behind his desk, going through the already large pile of paperwork that was on his desk. Damn you Minato, you just had to go and get yourself killed and leave me to deal with all of this shit, thought the Sandaime Hokage as he stamped yet another mission report as a success. What I wouldn't give for Naruto to barge in right now, he sighed, but nearly had a heart attack when he received a replay. I'm afraid that won't be happening ever again. In the blink of an eye, the Hokage was on the other side of the room in full battle gear with 4 Anbu flanking him. Whoever they were expecting, it certainly wasn't one of Sarutobi's old students. Jiraiya, what a pleasant surprise, but must you use the window, the Sandaime said before he dismissed his Anbu and put his Hokage robes back on. Cut the crap, sensei, I'm not in the mood, said Jiraiya in an uncharacteristically serious voice. Sarutobi was taken aback slightly at the tone in his former student's voice, but quickly adopted a similar look. What is it, Jiraiya? Is this about Orochimaru? No, Jiraiya said before narrowing his eyes in a glare at his former sensei, it's about you, or more precisely what you've done. Sarutobi stood for a moment, too stunned by his former pupil's response to do anything else. What I have done? What are you talking about, Jiraiya? I'm talking about what you did to Naruto, said the Toad Sage forcefully, causing his sensei to take a step back in shock. Never in the time he had known Jiraiya had the sage ever spoken to him in such a voice, but then what the sage said finally sank in. What about Naruto? What's happened to him? Said Sarutobi, his anxiousness rising. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the tone in his sensei's voice. He's either better at hiding how he feels than I thought, or maybe he wasn't involved in the attack. Your shinobi happened, sensei. I ran into Naruto as he was leaving the village after being attacked. The Hokage's eyes widened at this revelation, but that's not all. The group of shinobi that attacked him also killed the ramen chef Tsuchiya Chiraku and his daughter Ayam. Naruto managed to escape before they could kill him, but not before learning who ordered the attack. Sarutobi was about to ask who ordered the attack, until he remembered what Jiraiya had said when he first arrived. You think I ordered the attack on Naruto? That's absurd. He shouted, his anger growing. Well, at this point, sensei, I trust Naruto's word more than I trust yours, said Jiraiya from his place on the windowsill. Sarutobi paused slightly. Jiraiya had always valued his input, and always trusted his word. For Jiraiya to trust someone else's word over his was surprising to say the least. Shaking off his shock, Sarutobi sat down on the couch in his office. What did Naruto tell you exactly? He told me that 5 Chunin and 1 Jounin attacked him and the Ichirakus. He fought hard and managed to escape with relatively few injuries, said Jiraiya, purposely keeping key details of the attack out. I see, that explains why 3 of my shinobi and the Ichirakus are dead, sighed Sarutobi as he pulled out his pipe and lit it. I never mentioned anything about the Ichirakus or any of your shinobi dying as a result of the attack, Sarutobi, said Jiraiya, his glare intensifying. Sarutobi merely sighed once again before meeting Jiraiya's glare with a passive expression on his face. Jiraiya couldn't believe what he had just discovered. His sensei, the man he saw as a father figure, had ordered for his godson to be assassinated. Why? Was the only thing the sage could say as he fought to keep his anger in check. The Sandaime Hokage puffed his pipe a few times before he answered. The elders and council went over my head, Jiraiya. My hands were tied. Cut the crap, Sarutobi. I saw the bodies of the 3 dead shinobi. All of them were fiercely loyal to you. They would never have listened to the council or elders. Now tell me why. shouted Jiraiya, not even attempting to hide his rage anymore. You always were well informed, Jiraiya, said Sarutobi as he reached into his robes and pulled out a small wooden scroll. I did it because of this. With a flick of his wrist, the old Kage threw the scroll to Jiraiya, who caught it with ease. Opening the scroll caused Jiraiya's eyes to widen in shock. This is, he stuttered while reading over the scroll at a speed that would leave Might Guy dizzy. A detailed description of the Rinnegan, and a description of how it is activated. Some of my Umbu found it while out on a mission. From what I can gather, the scroll was written by the Sage of the Six Paths himself as a message for his successor, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, said Sarutobi, his passive expression never faltering. I felt it was in the village's best interest for Naruto to awaken the Rinnegan, giving Konoha all three of the legendary dojutsu. Imagine, Jiraiya, a team with all three dojutsus would be nearly invincible. Given the proper training, a team like that could easily surpass you and the other Sannin. Said Toad. Sannin looked up from the scroll, a look of shock on his face. You were willing to risk killing Naruto just so he could awaken the Rinnegan? What the hell happened to you, sensei? You're not the same man I once considered a father. Jiraiya rolled up the scroll, put it back on the desk before standing up and reaching into his red coat. Once again the Umbu made an appearance, not willing to risk Jiraiya pulling out a weapon. They were slightly surprised when he pulled out an old, beaten Konoha headband, all but Sarutobi, who recognized the piece of metal as Jiraiya's old headband. All of their eyes widened though when Jiraiya pulled out a kunai and, with the skill and precision of a master, slashed straight through the leaf symbol. So this is the path you wish to take, Jiraiya? Sarutobi asked as he slowly stood up. Jiraiya merely glared at the Hokage, causing his Umbu guard to tense in preparation of a fight. Naruto is and will always be my first priority. It's time I start taking my role as the boy's godfather seriously. If that means abandoning Konoha, then so be it, said Jiraiya before he dropped a smoke bomb and shot out the window. After the Umbu cleared the smoke with a low-level futon jutsu, Sarutobi walked back over to his desk and took a seat. Well, it seems we have 2 new rogue ninja to add to the bingo book. Send word that Jiraiya is to be marked as an S-rank traitor to Konoha with a kill-on-sight order, but have young Naruto marked as a C-ranked runaway with a capture-alive order, said the Hokage before he reached for the scroll that Jiraiya had left on the desk. His eyes shot open, however, when all he found was the surface of his desk. So young Naruto did indeed awaken the Rinnegan. That explains why the Jounin I sent was found completely crushed. This is a most disturbing turn of events. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, who also wields the Rinnegan, is destined to become a very dangerous shinobi, but one trained by Jiraiya would be truly frightening. We must get Naruto back into Konoha and convince him to join the village, one way or another. Tanzaka Guy. Naruto sat meditating in his room, a light blue aura surrounding his body. Jiraiya-sensei was right, Kurama. I think my Rinnegan has granted me perfect control over my chakra, thought Naruto as he continued to focus on his chakra core. I'm not surprised, Kit. The Rinnegan holds many mysteries. Not even I and the other Bijou know much about it. Seijiji never really used it after the 9 of us were born, said Kurama from inside his new seal. Seijiji? Who's that, Kurama? The Sage of the Six Paths, the founder of the ninja world, and my father, said Kurama as he lay down in his cage, knowing this conversation was going to take a while. What, your father was the founder of the ninja world, thought Naruto in surprise, nearly losing his meditation. Kurama nodded his head. Yes, focus, Kit, and yes, he was my father. I talked to him recently, yesterday when you awakened your Rinnegan. But how? He's dead, isn't he? Naruto thought as he regained control over his meditation. Kurama nodded again. Yes, he is dead, but as he reminded me, he who controls the Rinnegan is above the cycle of life and death. He used the last of his chakra to send his spirit back to this world to grant you his blessings. But before he faded away, he also asked me to do something for him. Really, what did he ask of you? Kurama took a deep breath before continuing. He told me of a great evil hiding in the shadows of this world. Seichiji said that unless the 9 chosen Jinchuriki fight as one, this world will cease to exist. We must gather the other 8 Jinchuriki, and only then will we be able to defeat this evil. For now, though, focus on your training. You must become stronger if you want to survive long enough to gather the other Jinchuriki. Well then, I guess I'd better get stronger as fast as possible. With that, Naruto cut the mental connection with his tenant and focused back on his meditation. 2 hours later. Jiraiya walked into the hotel room he and Naruto were staying in with a scowl on his face. Why would Sarutobi do something like this? This is the kind of thing I'd expect someone like Danzo to do, not the Sandaime, he thought as he looked over to his new apprentice only to have his eyes widen in surprise. Naruto was sitting in the basic lotus position with his hands resting on his knees. There was a blue aura around his body, but what surprised Jiraiya was that Naruto was floating above his bed. It must be the gravitational manipulation that is granted by the Deva path, Jiraiya thought, remembering what he had read in the scroll he stole from his former sensei. Hey Gaki, called Jiraiya, jarring the blonde Jinchuriki from his meditation. Said blonde opened his eyes, revealing his Rinnegan as he slowly floated back down to his bed. Naruto closed his eyes again, only this time when he opened them they were his normal sapphire blue. Do you know how you were doing that? Asked Jiraiya. Naruto nodded his head before speaking. Yeah, Kurama helped me figure it out. Kurama? Asked Jiraiya with a raised eyebrow. Yeah, Kurama, but I guess you would know him better as the Kyuubi no Kitsune. What? Shouted Jiraiya. How do you know about him, and how do you know you can trust him? I found out about him 2 years ago when a mob of villagers nearly killed me, said Naruto, causing Jiraiya to scowl. After he healed me, he offered to help me train, and thanks to him I learned some basic chakra control exercises like tree climbing and water walking. I see, said Jiraiya as he thought over what his godson had told him, but how does he know about the Rinnegan? Before Naruto could answer, his furry tenant decided to speak up. Kit, let me take over for a second to speak to him. Naruto mentally nodded and his features began to change, his whiskers darkened, his nails lengthened into claws, and his eyes bled to red with a slit pupil. Perhaps it would be better if I explained things personally, said the Kurama-possessed Naruto. Jiraiya, who had been preparing a seal to suppress the demonic chakra, narrowed his eyes at the now feral-looking host. What have you done with Naruto? Jiraiya asked, his voice dripping with venom. Kurama merely raised an eyebrow in response. The kid's fine, he can retake control at any moment, and before you ask, yes, the seal is still intact. Naruto just let me have control of his body for a while. It's quite a common occurrence with Jinchuriki actually. Jiraiya seemed to accept this and relaxed slightly, though he kept his seal tag out just in case things got hostile. You said you would explain, said the Toad Sage, his glare still in place. Kurama closed his eyes, thought for a moment. Very well, the reason I know about the Rinnegan is because my father was the original wielder of the Rinnegan. Jiraiya looked confused for a moment before his eyes shot open in shock. Wait, you mean? Kurama nodded. Yes, my father was the sage of the 6 paths. He created my siblings and I by separating the power of the Jubi into 9 parts. But let's get back on track. What I know of the Rinnegan is actually very limited. The sage created us shortly before he passed on and only used the techniques granted to him through the 6 paths, but he did use the power of the Deva path. Thanks to the gravitational manipulation, the sage created a prison to seal away the body of the Jubi, the moon. Jiraiya's jaw dropped at this, but he quickly recovered. To any normal person, that story would sound completely ridiculous, but I'm not exactly normal, even by ninja standards. So it's safe to assume that with the awakening of his Rinnegan, Naruto has already unlocked the Deva path? Yes, but I don't know when or how he will unlock the other paths. By the time we were born, Sage Gigi already had a fully developed Rinnegan, and he rarely used the 6 paths techniques, said Kurama with a thoughtful look on his face. I believe this scroll has the answers we need, said Jiraiya as he pulled the wooden scroll out of his coat. Apparently, the sage of the 6 paths knew that his successor would one day awaken the Rinnegan and left descriptions of its inner workings. The Kurama-fied Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. So that's what Sage Gigi was doing during his last few days of life. It seems that the more we discover about him, the more questions appear. Well, I suppose I should let the kid have control back. He's getting a little impatient. Don't worry about training the kid to use my chakra. I'll handle that aspect of his training when he's ready. For now, just work on his regular ninja skills. Once you feel he's at an acceptable level, ask him what the mission the sage of the 6 paths gave him is. Before Jiraiya had a chance to ask what the Kyuubi meant, Naruto's features had returned to normal. Oh well, guess I'll just have to wait to figure out what the Kyuubi meant, the Toad Sage thought before addressing his godson. Alright Gaki, before we continue your training, I want you to read this scroll. It will help you understand your Rinnegan better and how to train to use its powers. Tossing the scroll to the young blonde, Jiraiya sat down on his bed and took up the lotus position, only instead his hands were curled into loose fists pushed against each other. Once you have finished reading the scroll and you feel that you have an understanding of what it is trying to tell you, let me know and we will move on in your training. Naruto gave his sensei a strange look, but shrugged and settled into a comfortable position. Opening the old scroll with care, Naruto started reading it, only for his eyes to widen at the first few lines. To Naruto, my one true heir and successor. You are probably wondering who I am and how I know you. Well, allow me to introduce myself. Though I gave my birth name up years ago, I am known as the Sage of the 6 Paths, the founder of the ninja world, and as to how I know you, well, that is a bit more complicated. You see, Naruto, during my time on this earth I fought against and defeated what is known as the Jubi, the 10-tailed beast. I could not, however, slay the demon, so I did the next best thing. I sealed the beast's power and soul within me, making me the first of what would later become known as Jinchuriki. As the Jinchuriki of the Jubi, I received a small amount of its abilities, one of which allowed me to see brief glimpses of the future. Because of this ability, I learned a horrible truth, that darkness would once again spread over this world and destroy it. But as I learned long ago, there is a balance to everything, and so I began trying to find that balance, the light that could destroy the darkness of the world. I searched for years trying to find any hint or trace of what could balance the darkness to come, searching both in the past and the future. My answer came when I found you, Naruto. You are the light that balances the darkness. However, I could not see any farther into the future once you were revealed to be my one true heir. It is because of this that I have left this scroll for you, to help you grow and to hopefully return peace to this world. Below is a detailed description of what the true Rinnegan is capable of, as well as a special seal of my own design that contains numerous scrolls filled with my knowledge of chakra and all things related to the ninja way. Good luck, Naruto, and I hope that one day you will be able to defeat the darkness in this world and restore peace. Know that I am forever with you, and will be watching over you from the next world. The Sage of the Six Paths. Though the message was brief, Naruto could tell that the sage truly believed in him. Holding back the tears that threatened to fall, Naruto unfurled the scroll some more and found the description the sage had mentioned. The Rinnegan is very mysterious dojutsu, in the fact that not even its wielder can understand its true powers. It is only speculation, but seeing as either of my sons awakened the Rinnegan and everything that happened before I awakened it, I believe that the Rinnegan will only awaken in times of great distress. Who it awakens in, however, or how they are related remains a mystery to me, though it is possible that I was the originator of the dojutsu and you, Naruto, may be a distant descendant of mine. During my travels, I faced many hardships that pushed me to my utter breaking point of sanity. I believe these hardships were a test to see whether I would be what the people call a god of creation or the destroyer. When it first awakens, the Rinnegan will turn its user's eyes into a metallic purple with a dot-like pupil and one concentric ring around the pupil. This represents the first level of Rinnegan. This level grants the user the power to wield all 5 types of nature transformations. Along with the nature transformation, the first level of Rinnegan also unlocks the first of the 6 paths techniques, the Deva Path and Animal Path. With the Deva Path comes the ability to use gravitational manipulation to attract or repel objects. The Animal Path is a little less complicated. This path allows one to summon any creature that you can imagine, giving you a near limitless amount of animal summons to fight alongside you. With the second level of the Rinnegan, a second concentric ring will appear around the pupil. With the activation of the second level of the Rinnegan, the wielder is granted the ability to combine the 5 basic nature transformations in order to form the advanced chakra natures, such as Mokuton, Hayatan, Shoton, and so on and so forth. It also awakens the next 2 paths, the Human Path and the Preta Path. The Human Path grants the user the ability to touch a person's very soul, and should the need arise, rip their soul from their body. This path also has a second ability. Simply by placing your hand on your target's head, you can read every thought they have ever had, see every memory they've experienced, and learn everything they have ever learned. The Preta Path is more of a supportive and defensive technique. This path allows one to absorb chakra into their body and add to their own core. The third level of the Rinnegan, following the pattern of the other levels, adds a third concentric ring around the pupil. With the activation of the third level, the Rinnegan grants its wielder the ability to wield the, in your time extinct, Haitan and Meitan styles of ninjutsu. This level will also complete the 6-path set of techniques by unlocking the Asura Path and the Naraka Path. Even as I write this, I cringe at the effects of the Asura Path. I never quite got used to the sensation, but maybe you will. The Asura Path allows the user to augment their body with mechanized armor, extra limbs, and other various robotic weapons. The Naraka Path is the only true supportive path in the Rinnegan's arsenal. It allows you to summon the King of Hell to interrogate a target by judging whether they are lying or not. Should the victim lie, the King of Hell will suck out their life force, but should they speak the truth, they will be spared. Also, this path is considered the medic of the 6 paths techniques, since you can heal any wound, no matter how severe, in seconds and revive the fallen so long as they have not been dead more than 12 hours. Though I am known as the Sage of the 6 Paths, I have kept a secret from the rest of the world. There is a 7th path, the Outer Path. This path can only be obtained by achieving the 4th and final level of the Rinnegan. Though its power is great, the cost is heavy. To achieve the final level, you must be betrayed by someone close to your heart. I pray you never have to know this pain, but I fear that you will, so I will tell you of the Outer Path's abilities. The Outer Path grants one the ability to control life and death through the use of 2 jutsu, the Outer Path, Samsara of Heavenly Life Jutsu, and the Outer Path, Samsara of Hell's Judgment Jutsu. With the Heavenly Life Jutsu, one can return the souls of the deceased to the world of the living, so long as their body is still intact. The Hell's Judgment, on the other hand, can steal the souls of the victims from them, much like the human path though on a grander scale, and seal them away inside the King of Hell for all eternity. While I deemed it necessary to help you understand the Rinnegan better, I will not tell you everything. Learning things for yourself is how one grows, and I wish you luck, Naruto, in discovering the things I have not told you. I know you will not let me down, and I look forward to the day we can speak face to face, though I hope it is not for a very long time. Naruto sat wide-eyed at what the Rinnegan was capable of, but what shocked the most was the power of the outer path. You must be betrayed by someone close to your heart to achieve this power. Sorry, Seijiji, your fears were right, I have felt that pain. But then why don't I have the 4th level if I have already experienced the pain of betrayal? I don't know, Kit. The Rinnegan works in mysterious ways, so much so that not even Seijiji himself knew all of its abilities. But I can speculate, it's possible that to achieve the final level and awaken the outer path, you must first master the 6 paths. Or it's possible that that old fool of Kage wasn't close enough to your heart for you to experience the pain Seijiji was talking about, said Kurama as he read the scroll through Naruto's eyes. You might be right, Kurama. But only time will tell, I suppose, thought Naruto before he unrolled the scroll even more and found a complex sealing array. This must be the seal he mentioned. Naruto slowly placed his hand over the seal. Nothing happened, so he tried channeling some of his chakra into it, but still nothing happened. What the hell, why can't I undo the seal? Naruto thought, his frustration evident. Kit, Seijiji said he personally designed that seal to contain all of his knowledge that he wanted to pass on to you. Do you honestly think he wouldn't set up a number of precautions to make sure no one else could access the knowledge? Naruto outwardly sighed, but nodded in agreement nonetheless. You're probably right, Kurama. Well, I guess it's time to wake up Jiraiya-sensei. Jiraiya-sensei, I've finished the scroll, now what do we do? Jiraiya made no outward signs that had hurt Naruto, but just as the blonde was about to throw a pillow at him, he cracked one eye open. So you did finish. Very well then, we'll continue your training in a little while. For now, meditate. Try and draw on your gravitational powers again, but this time without Kurama's help. With that, Jiraiya closed his eye and continued his own meditation, while Naruto just sighed and mumbled something about lazy senseis before resuming his meditative pose and followed his sensei's instructions. The hours passed slowly for the two meditating shinobi. Naruto had a little difficulty in accessing his gravitational powers, but eventually he was able to use the manipulation and began levitating above his bed, just as Jiraiya had found him. Jiraiya, on the other hand, had used the time to gather a small amount of senjutsu chakra, enough that he could sense the things around him but not enough for him to lose control and change into a frog. Using the abilities of senjutsu, he was able to monitor his new student's progress while at the same time scouting the area for any potential threats. So I was right, the Rinnegan has given him perfect control over his chakra, despite his large reserves. It also seems that whenever he uses his gravitational manipulation, his Rinnegan subconsciously activates. Could that be a type of natural defense? The Toad Sage continued to ponder over the possibilities while he changed his attention to the town and surrounding forests. Everything looks clear. The only chakra signatures around that are above civilian level are 2 shinobi that are hanging out in a bar, if I remember correctly. It should be safe to train the kid here for a few days before moving on. The less attention we bring, the better. Jiraiya released the senjutsu chakra he had gathered and opened his eyes to see his young charge levitating over his bed. Well, looks like it's time to another gaki. Hey Naruto, wake up, he said while throwing a pillow at the blonde. To his surprise, the pillow stopped mere inches from the blonde's face and just hung in midair. Well, that's unexpected. Looks like he can create a gravitational field around him using his Deva path. That could come in handy during a fight, thought Jiraiya as Naruto slowly lowered himself back to his bed and threw the pillow back at him. Swatting the pillow away like a fly, the Toad Sage addressed the young blonde. So you ready to continue on with your training, gaki? Naruto didn't hesitate in his response. Yes, Jiraiya-sensei. Said Sannin couldn't help but smirk at being called sensei again. He honestly missed the feeling. Alright then, let's head into the forest and we'll begin. With that, the two quickly left town and found themselves in the same clearing as before. Jiraiya turned to Naruto, who was standing calmly in front of him, though his eyes betrayed his excitement. Smirking, Jiraiya quickly decided what they would start with. Okay Naruto, since you already have perfect chakra control thanks to your Rinnegan, we can skip that portion of your training. So to start with, I'll teach you a few low-level jutsu you can practice with. Naruto nodded in understanding, his Rinnegan still activated from his meditation. He watched as Jiraiya went through a few hand seals, ending with the tiger. His eyes widened though, when he realized he could see the way the chakra was moving inside his sensei as he prepared the jutsu. He was brought out of his stupor by the sound of his sensei's voice. Katan, Fireball Jutsu. Jiraiya put his right hand up to his mouth and launched a medium-sized ball of fire of a nearby tree, destroying it with ease. Alright Naruto, let's see what you got, Jiraiya said as he showed the blonde the hand seals for the jutsu. Nodding in understanding, Naruto slowly went through the hand seals while moving his chakra the same way Jiraiya's had. With a cry of Katan Fireball Jutsu, Naruto launched a ball of fire the same size as Jiraiya's at the tree, incinerating it. Naruto ended the jutsu and turned to his sensei to see how he did, only to be met with the shocked face of the Toad Sage. Sensei, hello Earth to Sensei, anybody home? Jiraiya just stood there, staring at where the tree once stood. Impossible, even with the perfect chakra control granted by the Rinnegan, there's no way he should have been able to use a jutsu like that after only seeing it once. The Toad Sage's thoughts continued to run rampant as he tried to figure out exactly how Naruto had managed to perform the jutsu almost flawlessly. Wait a minute, according to the description the sage left in the scroll, he purposely left certain aspect of the Rinnegan out because he wanted Naruto to learn them for himself. Is it possible that the Rinnegan has a similar ability to the Sharingan? Finally managing to get over his shock, Jiraiya turned his gaze to the blonde who had destroyed 3 more trees while he waited. Naruto, said the Toad Sage, catching the blonde's attention. Yes, sensei? Naruto asked as he walked back over to Jiraiya. When I was showing you the jutsu, what exactly did you see? Naruto thought for a moment before answering the question. Well, while you were going through the hand signs for the jutsu, I saw the way your chakra was moving. When I tried it for myself, I moved my chakra the same way I saw yours move, and boom, giant fireball. It's not the same, but still it's similar to the Sharingan. He can see how the chakra moves inside the body for a jutsu, but when he does it himself, it doesn't move the chakra for him, he has to do it himself. Still, that is a major advantage both in battle and in training, thought Jiraiya. Returning his attention to his student, he motioned for him to get behind him. I'm going to show you another jutsu, Naruto, this time one for Doton. Naruto nodded while he watched his sensei's chakra move to form the jutsu. Jiraiya ended the chain of hand seals in the snake's seal, Doton Earth Wall. Slamming his hands on the ground, a 6-foot wall of earth rose from the ground in front of Jiraiya. As you can probably tell, this jutsu is a defensive type. This way you have a defensive and an offensive jutsu in your arsenal. I won't teach you any more, however, until you have mastered these 2, understand? Yes, Jiraiya-sensei, Naruto said before he began practicing with his 2 jutsu, destroying a good portion of the clearing they were in. Jiraiya watched all of this with a smirk on his face. He truly is your son Minato, and it seems that he inherited more than just your looks. Because of his heritage alone, his potential was already great, but now that he has the Rinnegan along with the Kyuubi and myself training him, I'm almost afraid of how powerful he'll become. Jiraiya felt a chill run down his spine at that thought, but it only caused his smirk to widen. But I suppose the anticipation of what your student will become is half the fun of being a sensei. Kanehigakure Hokage Tower. The Sandaime Hokage sat behind his desk, completely ignoring the massive pile of paperwork his assistant had just brought in. He was lost in his thoughts about what to do now that Jiraiya had abandoned the village and was now training Naruto. Jiraiya is too powerful for any of my current ninja to kill one-on-one, and even if I were to send my best Jounin and Umbu after him, it would only result in their deaths. Also, it would be pointless to try and track them. Jiraiya, being the spy master he is, knows better than anyone how to cover his tracks. The so-called professor sat in silence for a little while longer before a knock on his door brought his attention back to the present. Enter, he said in the most commanding voice he could muster with his thoughts in the state they were. The door opened and allowed a man the same age as Sarutobi into the office. The man had gray hair as well as a beard of the same color, and glasses on the bridge of his nose. His strong jawline was made even more prominent with the frown that seemed to be permanently etched on his face. His attire was very similar to Sarutobi's own, the only difference being instead of his robe being red with a white coat over it, his was a dark blue with a tan coat. He also had a white cloth wrapped around his shoulders that hid his neck from view. Following the man was a woman of similar age. Her gray hair was pulled into a tight bun with a traditional Japanese hairpin holding it in place with fringes hanging down over her forehead. She wore a gray kimono held together by a simple obi with a dark green jacket and a sash over her left shoulder that went down to her right hip. Her eyes were squinted in her old age, giving her a permanent and intimidating glare. The last one to enter was another man the same age as the 3 already in the room. He was a frail old man and he used a cane to help him walk, but if one looked close enough they would notice he could walk perfectly fine without it. His shaggy black hair was a strong contrast to the white bandages that were wrapped over his right eye. He had a frown on his face, a trait the 3 seemed to share, that made the unusual X-shaped scar on his chin more prominent. He wore a dark gray robe over a white shirt that stopped just above his right shoulder, partially concealing his bandaged right arm that was in a sling. His only visible eye was squinted shut, but seemed to look at everything in sight with a hawk-like gaze. These 3 were none other than Hamura Midokado, Koharu Yutane and Danzo Shimura, the 3 elders of Konoha. Hamura stepped forward, his tone betraying his curiosity. Why have you called us, Sarutobi? Sarutobi looked each of them in the eye before sighing and motioning for them to take a seat in front of his desk. Once the three were seated, Sarutobi began what he knew would be a long conversation. I have called you here to discuss a matter of great importance. 1 year ago, one of my Umbu teams returned from a mission in the land of mountains with the scroll. According to them, they found the scroll hidden in a shrine atop one of the mountains being guarded by surprisingly talented warrior monks. When they returned with the scroll, I was the first person to read it, only to receive the shock of my lifetime. The elder's eyebrows rose slightly at this little piece of information. The four of them had lived through all three of the Shinobi World Wars, having fought in the first and commanding the village through the second and third. Living through those times had hardened them to the point where not much could truly shock them, but when something did, it usually meant trouble was very close on the horizon. Sarutobi was especially immune to surprises, being the Hokage during times of war tended to make one expect almost everything. The three elders once again glanced at each other, but this time if one looked carefully they would see the growing fear in their eyes. The scroll, you see, was a message left behind by the sage of the Six Paths himself for his one true heir. Before Sarutobi could continue, he was interrupted by a completely shocked Koharu. Heir? Are you saying that the sage of the Six Paths somehow knew he would one day have an heir? Yes, Koharu, and not only was this person his heir, the sage also called him his successor. This time it was Danzo who couldn't keep quiet. A successor, you can't mean? I do, Danzo, Sarutobi interrupted his old rival, someone who would one day become his equal, and maybe even surpass him in power and skill. But that is not the most shocking news. What the hell could be more shocking than discovering that the sage of the Six Paths would have an heir? Asked an incredulous Hamura, thinking things couldn't possibly get any more surprising than they already had. Sarutobi looked his old teammate dead in the eye. Perhaps it was the fact that the heir the sage spoke of resided here in this very village. The elders couldn't help but gape at this newest piece of information. Not only had the sage had an heir, but that person was living in Konoha. It was almost too good to be true. We must find this person at once. We cannot let such a potentially powerful person to slip through our fingers. Not surprisingly, it was Danzo who spoke up. He always was the more militaristic one of the four of them. Hamura and Koharu nodded in agreement with their fellow elder. Letting someone like that out of their sight could be disastrous for the village. The Sandaime sighed. He knew this part was going to cause him a serious headache. I'm afraid you're too late. I already know who the person is, but getting him under our control will not be an easy feat. The elders stopped the small planning session they were having and turned suspicious eyes to the Hokage. The heir the sage spoke of in his message was none other than Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. What? Shouted the three retired ninja as they tried to wrap their minds around what Sarutobi had just said. Naruto Uzumaki, the village pariah, was the one true heir of the sage of the Six Paths, the man who founded the ninja world? It just wasn't possible. From what they had read about the boy in his academy file was that he was almost useless as a shinobi. His taijutsu was very below average, his genjutsu was non-existent, and his ninjutsu was horrible. How was it that someone with no skill whatsoever could possibly be the heir to the most powerful shinobi ever to walk the earth? Yes, the scroll also explained in detail about the Rinnegan and how it was awakened. I sent a team of shinobi to complete the task and force Naruto to awaken the Rinnegan, giving us all three of the legendary dojutsu at our disposal. Unfortunately, circumstances occurred that caused a small problem. It seems the Jounin I put in charge of the mission blabbed that I was the one who ordered the attack, causing Naruto to flee the village. The Sandaime finished with a sigh, already preparing for the tongue lashing his advisors were about to deliver, and they didn't disappoint. What, you let that boy flee knowing who he was? Are you insane, Sarutobi? If any of the other villages were to get their hands on him, trailed off Hamura, not even wanting to think of what could happen if a village like Iwagakure got their hands on Naruto. Hamura is right, Sarutobi. We cannot allow any other village to find out who Naruto truly is. We must bring the boy back inside the walls of Konoha for the village's own good, Koharu said, her frown deepening as her thoughts drifted into one similar to Hamura's. This is not something that we can ignore, Sarutobi. We need to send out teams to find the boy immediately, and bring him back to the village. Once he has been returned, he must be trained to be a loyal follower to the village to prevent something like this from ever happening again. Danzo said, his anger visible in his lone eye. I know, however it is not as simple as that, the Hokage said, cutting off the elders before they could get too far into their rant. Jiraiya, the boy's godfather, found him shortly after he left the village. It seems Naruto told Jiraiya everything that happened to him, and Jiraiya was less than pleased, to say the least. He was angry enough over what happened to Naruto that he has abandoned the village to become a rogue ninja. The elders stiffened at this. Jiraiya was by far the most powerful shinobi that Konoha had at its disposal after the treason of Orochimaru and Tsunade's leaving. They also knew that sending teams after Naruto would be nothing short of suicide, as Jiraiya could probably take on half of their current available ninja at once, and win. As you know, trying anything to get Naruto back now would be extremely risky with Jiraiya around. The only course of action available to us is to bide our time and wait for an opening to present itself. The elders could only nod in agreement. They may not have liked the idea, but it was the only one available to them that didn't result in the massacre of hundreds of their ninja forces. Very well, we shall wait and make our move when the time is right, but until that time comes we need to prepare for anything and everything, Danzo said, getting nods of agreement from everyone else in the room. Even if there was only one technically loyal to the village, the Sannin were, and have always been a deterrent to the other villages to prevent war. When word gets out that all 3 Sannin have abandoned Konoha, other villages might be tempted to make a play for power. Danzo is right. We must be prepared for anything that might happen in the future. For now, though, we shall retake control of the Ninja Academy and up the curriculum. We will need more powerful ninja at our disposal when the time comes to make our move and help prevent war, and the best place to start is at the bottom, said Sarutobi as he took out a sheet of paper and a pen and began writing orders out. It is time that our ninja's skills should reflect our title as the strongest of the 5. Hamura and Koharu, send word to all of our forces that there will be an emergency meeting in exactly 2 hours. Danzo, I am officially reactivating your Root Umbu program. I know that you have some young children already in there, so send them to the academy to train with their peers. Also, send word to the academy that they are to implement these changes at once, and anyone who tries to argue with these orders is to be killed on the spot. As far as I'm concerned, we are now in a state of war, and we will prepare as such. The 3 elders nodded in understanding and quickly left the office to complete their assigned task. Sarutobi sat back in his chair and glanced over at a picture he kept on the edge of his desk. It was a picture of his genin team when they were first formed. The Sandaime frowned at the sight of the picture before he pushed it off his desk, watched as it cracked to the floor. It seems that all 3 of my former students have abandoned the village now. No matter, they can be dealt with in time, and then all 3 of them will pay the consequences for abandoning Konoha, thought Sarutobi as he got back to work, but not without one last glance at the now broken picture. The glass had cracked in 3 places, each crack going through the face of one of his students. Time skip 1 year later. Jiraiya stood in the middle of a small clearing surrounded by the dense forest of the Land of Woods. He remained unmoving for a few more minutes before a shift in the wind caught his attention. Spinning around, he raised his arms just in time to block a kick to the head from a black blur. Pushing the assailant back, Jiraiya took a moment to observe the person. The assailant flipped twice in midair before landing in a crouch a few yards away. Baggy black cargo pants led up to a black skin-tight sleeveless shirt that displayed the person's developing chest. Black sandals completed the outfit. A mop of spiky blonde hair rested on top of the attacker's head, while 3 whisker-like marks stood out prominently on his cheeks. The attacker was none other than a 9-year-old Naruto Uzumaki. Jiraiya smirked when he saw the small frown growing on his godson's face. Not bad, Gaki. Your stealth has improved since the last time we sparred, though you're still nowhere near good enough to get the drop on me. Naruto's frown, which had started to turn into a smile at his sensei's compliment, was back in full force. Seeing an opening in Jiraiya's guard, the blonde shinobi shot forward and attempted to deliver a left hook to the Toad Sage's ribcage. Naruto smirked when his punch met its mark, only for his eyes to widen when the Jiraiya he punched disappeared in a poof of smoke. Caught off guard by the fact he was fighting a clone, Naruto was completely unprepared for the palm to the back that sent him sprawling. Deciding to take things up a notch, Naruto used the momentum from the palm strike to roll into a handstand and flip backwards a few times before finally landing on his feet. Going through hand seals and ending with the tiger seal, Naruto jumped into the air and brought his right hand up to his mouth. Katan, Fireball Jutsu. Taking a deep breath, the young blonde launched a medium-sized ball of fire at his sensei. Seeing the approaching threat, Jiraiya flashed through hand signs of his own and ended with the snake's seal. Doton, Earth Wall. Slamming his hands of the ground, a wall of earth rose just in time to block the attack. Releasing his jutsu, Jiraiya jumped up to meet the falling Naruto and delivered a sharp knee to the boy's chest. Gasping for breath, Naruto could do little more than grab a hold of his sensei's arm to keep from falling to the unforgiving ground below. Seeing his student unable to keep his balance and control, Jiraiya flung him over his shoulder and landing softly on the ground. Setting his student down, Jiraiya waited for him to get his breathing back under control. You've definitely improved, Naruto, but you're becoming predictable again. You're relying too heavily on your elemental jutsu. You need to start using your Rinnegan and the paths you've already unlocked more. I understand wanting to keep those abilities secret, but they won't do you any good to keep them secret if you don't know how to use them effectively in combat. I know, Jiraiya-sensei, but you also said I needed to work on my skills in deception, said Naruto, not facing his sensei. Jiraiya's eyes widened at the tone in his student's voice, but before he could react, said Blonde spun around with his Rinnegan glowing slightly. Shinra-tensei, said the Kyuubi Jinchuriki as he watched his sensei get blasted back by the invisible force of gravity. Why that little bastard, cursed Jiraiya as he crashed into a few trees before coming to a stop at the edge of the now expanded clearing. Slowly getting to his feet, the toad sage cursed under his breath as he felt multiple joints popping back into place. Sensing his student approaching, he managed to lift his head enough to see the smirking face of his 9-year-old student. Damn it, Gaki, I hate it when you do that. Naruto gave Jiraiya a look. You're the one who said I needed to learn to use my pads effectively in combat, so quit complaining. Oh, shut up, rasped Jiraiya as he shakily made it to his feet. I think that's enough for today anyway. We don't want to draw any attention to ourselves by altering the landscape. Naruto nodded in agreement, but couldn't help the question that slipped out. If you didn't want to bring attention to us, then why did you insist we come to the land of woods? This country was the birthplace of the Senju clan and has strong ties to Konoha, so a Konoha ninja could pop up almost anywhere. Jiraiya just rolled his eyes, but couldn't fault his student's logic. True, this country has strong ties to Konoha, but it's also the home of one of my secret hideouts. You have a secret hideout? Asked Naruto incredulously with a raised eyebrow. Jiraiya glared at his student in mock indignation. What, do you honestly believe I became a spy master without having a hideout or two lying around in case of emergencies? Naruto had the decency to look slightly sheepish for not thinking about that before. Shaking his head in exasperation, Jiraiya motioned for Naruto to follow him as they made their way deeper into the forests of the land of woods. They traveled in silence for a few hours as they continued to make their way into the deeper and darker parts of the forest. Eventually they stopped at the base of a large tree, but before Naruto could question his sensei, Jiraiya jumped up into the thick canopy above. Cursing his sensei silently, Naruto quickly followed by running up the tree with chakra. Surprisingly, instead of thick, hard branches like he was expecting, Naruto found himself standing in the middle of what appeared to be a large tree house. Taking a closer look, he noticed that it wasn't an actual tree house, but an open space with a wooden floor that spanned out to multiple surrounding trees. There was no actual roof above him, just the unnaturally thick canopy he had been expecting to run into on his way up. Returning his attention to the area around him, Naruto noticed several large monitors that were hanging on the side of one of the tree trunks with a large semicircle couch in front of them. In the center of the couch seemed to be a fire pit of some kind which he guessed was for cooking meals. There were also several large pieces of cloth draped over openings towards the back which most likely lead into bedrooms of some kind. He was brought out of his thoughts by the sound of his sensei's voice. Well, Gaki, what do you think of our new home? The young blonde took a few more moments to take in his surroundings before turning to his sensei with a small smirk on his face. Not bad, sensei, though how is it a secret hideout exactly? Anyone who climbs any of these trees will be able to find it. Jiraiya only smirked as he had been expecting that very question. No, they can't. This place is hidden by an extremely advanced and nigh undetectable genjutsu. Only those with blessed eyes can hope to find it, and even then only those whose blood is keyed into the security seals can access it. But wait, you're not that great at genjutsu, sensei, so how is it there is such an advanced genjutsu protecting this place? The blonde Jinchuriki asked, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. True, I may not be the best at genjutsu, but I am a seal master. I created a seal that would temporarily place someone under my control and erase all their memories of whatever it is they did while under my control when the seal was released, Jiraiya said with pride while Naruto just gaped at him. I placed the seal on Tsunade and had her apply a genjutsu similar to the one she uses on herself to hide this place. Naruto merely stared at his sensei in wonder. To have such a seal at his disposal was invaluable. But then another thought struck him. You realize, sensei, that if what you have told me of Tsunade is anything to go by, if she were ever to find out about that fact she would probably jump to conclusions and kill you, right? Jiraiya's only response was to pale slightly, but quickly shook it off as he moved over to the monitors. Anyway, we'll use this place as our base of operations for the foreseeable future, unless circumstances demand we abandon it. For now though, get some sleep, cause tomorrow we'll be making plans on what we have to do in the coming years, said Jiraiya as he sat down on the couch and turned on the monitors, showing live and recorded camera feed from inside Konohagakure no Sado. Yeah, I'll see you in the morning, sensei. Night, said Naruto with a slight yawn as he made his way to one of the cloth-covered openings. Night, Gaki, Jiraiya said over his shoulder, his eyes never leaving the monitors, specifically the two showing the live and recorded footage from the Hokage's office. Time to see what that traitorous sensei of mine has been up to lately. The next morning, Naruto and Jiraiya sat across from one another on the couch in front of the monitors, each monitor showing footage from one of the 5 great shinobi nations. Naruto was focusing on the meat that was cooking over the fire pit, occasionally flipping a piece so it wasn't overcooked. Jiraiya, though, was focusing solely on the monitors, when he saw the recorded footage of Sarutobi having a meeting with the 3 elders of Konoha and what they talked about. He had been keeping a critical eye on the villages. Hey Jiraiya-sensei, Breakfast is ready, Naruto said, bringing his sensei's attention away from the monitors. Jiraiya smiled as he accepted the plate his student was offering him. Thanks, Gaki, you're a way better cook than I ever was. Popping one of the pieces of meat into his mouth, Jiraiya returned his attention to the monitors, not wanting to miss even the slightest hint that there might be war. Naruto looked up from his own meal and noticed Jiraiya had barely even touched his. Hey sensei, is something wrong? Jiraiya glanced over at Naruto before turning back to the monitors. I'm not sure, Naruto, and that's what has me worried. Sighing, the Toad Sage turned away from the monitors and began to eat his almost forgotten meal. What do you mean, sensei? Putting his plate down, Jiraiya turned serious eyes to his student. Last night, I watched a recorded meeting between Sarutobi and the village elders. It seems that for the past year or so, they have been making some drastic changes to the village and the ninja there. They have upped the curriculum at the academy to increase the quality of their future ninja, and they have also been training their active shinobi as well. It seems that with my departing, they fear that the other villages will see this as an opportunity to attack. Naruto's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. So you're worried that another village may attack Konoha? Is that what's got you so worked up? No, it's not that, said Jiraiya with a glance at the monitors. It's what might happen should another village try and attack Konoha. I fear that it may trigger another war and make our lives that much more difficult. How would a war make our lives harder? It's not like we'll be fighting in it, said Naruto, his confusion growing. Jiraiya sighed again before continuing. It would make our lives harder because during times of war everyone, ninja and civilian alike, is very weary of outsiders and travelers. The civilians because they have no way of knowing if a person is who they say they are, and the ninja because it could be a potential enemy of some kind. Also during war, some villages will hire or seek out wandering ninja and mercenaries to aid them, and with me being who I am, I'd be a prime target for those villages. Naruto nodded, understanding why his sensei was so intent on keeping an eye on the villages. The two continued to eat in silence after that before a thought struck him. Hey sensei, if the villages are willing to waste resources on mercenaries and wandering ninja, do you think they'd use them to find stuff like weapons? Jiraiya nodded. Yes, in fact they would probably go after weapons or objects that would help them in a war more than they would wandering ninja or mercenaries. That is because getting their hands on something is usually easier than recruiting a ninja. Why do you ask? Naruto looked hesitant to respond, and that set off alarms inside Jiraiya's mind. Naruto is usually outspoken and doesn't think before he speaks. What could possibly make him hesitate in voicing his thoughts? Thought the Toad Sage before he remembered the conversation he had with Kurama a year ago. Could it have something to do with that mission Kurama spoke of? Naruto took a shaky breath before finally answering his sensei's question. Would Jinchuriki be included in that as well? At Jiraiya's nod, he continued, then we have to move soon. If a war does break out, it will make my mission that much harder. You're talking about that mission Kurama mentioned a year ago, right? Naruto nodded the affirmative, bringing a thoughtful look to Jiraiya's face. A mission involving the Jinchuriki. What the hell could he have to do? Jiraiya pondered things for a moment before his eyes shot open, causing Naruto to flinch back slightly. He couldn't possibly be considering gathering all the Jinchuriki together, could he? Naruto, what do you have to do that involves the Jinchuriki? I have to bring them together so that the 9 of us can fight together against the darkness that is hiding in the shadows of this world. Only when the 9 of us fight together can we stand a chance of defeating this evil. This made Jiraiya frown slightly as he thought this over. A mission of this caliber would easily be considered SSS rank by a village's standards, but what could this darkness he mentioned be? I'll have to let my spy network know to keep an eye and ear open for anything that might be related to this threat. Oh well, I always did enjoy a challenge. Outwardly a smirk began spreading across Jiraiya's face as he continued to think things over. Alright Gaki, since it seems this mission was given to you by the Sage of the Six Paths himself, it must be of great importance. Now the first place to start is to locate the other Jinchuriki, and to do that we'll need my spy network. I'll send word out for them to start looking for any information that could relate to the Jinchuriki, said Jiraiya as he got up and walked over to one of the many flaps that covered an opening in the hideout. Naruto quickly followed after his sensei and had to control his surprise at what he found in the room. The whole room was covered in seals. A large seal matrix was drawn in the center of the room where Jiraiya was currently sitting, and a large map of the elemental nations lined an entire wall, with seals and locations listed all over it. Some of the seals were glowing a faint red while others weren't doing anything. Naruto's attention was torn from the room when the seal matrix Jiraiya was sitting in the middle of started glowing the same faint red as the seals on the map. Slowly, one by one the seals on the map began to dim and return to normal, and after the last seal had faded, Jiraiya stood up from the seal matrix and motioned for Naruto to follow him back into the main area. What the hell was that, sensei? Asked a completely astonished Naruto. Jiraiya couldn't keep the smirk off his face as he turned to his student. That, Naruto, is one of my greatest creations in the art of Fuinjutsu. It is based on the same principle as the Yamanaka clan's Mind Jutsu, but on a much larger scale. You see, Naruto, I can't always be there in person when one of my informants has something important they need me to know. So I designed a seal that could be placed on my informants that would allow them to transfer whatever it is they need me to know into that room we were just in. When they do this, the seal that is linked to theirs will glow, indicating a new message, and by sitting in the middle of that seal matrix, I am able to absorb whatever knowledge they send to me. Naruto, for the first time in his life, was speechless. What his sensei had just told him seemed almost impossible, and to an average civilian, it was impossible. But as Naruto was quickly learning, in the world of ninja, always expect the unexpected. Finally finding his voice, Naruto said the first thing that came to mind, "That is so cool, Jiraiya-sensei, you are so teaching me that later on." Taking a few deep breaths to calm himself down, Naruto looked at his sensei with a question on his face. "So what all did you learn, sensei?" Hearing the question, Jiraiya's expression turned serious again as he and Naruto sat back down on the couch. "Actually, Naruto, I got a possible lead on one of the other Jinchuriki." Naruto's eyes snapped up to meet his sensei, all traces of his earlier excitement gone. "From what my informant can gather, the Jinchuriki lives in Sunagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the sand. According to the stories that the Sandaime used to tell my team growing up, during his reign of the Shodai Hokage, Hashirama Senju gained control over all 9 of the Bija thanks to his unique Mokutan abilities. Shortly after Konohagakure was founded, Hashirama spread the Bijou around to other sprouting villages in an attempt to equalize power. If I'm not mistaken, he gave the Ichibi to Sunagakure because of its ability to manipulate sand." Naruto nodded slightly in understanding before turning to the monitor displaying Sunagakure. "So Shikaku is in Suna. That's at least a couple of days' journey from here at my top speed, which isn't much." Jiraiya nodded, picking up a controller and turning on other monitors, showing different locations inside Sunagakure. "True, but that is if we go by foot. I think this would be a good time to test out summoning a larger creature through your animal path, but we can worry about getting there later. First we need to try and piece together an identity of who the Jinchuriki might be. From what my informant gathered, it is a young boy around your age, and judging by what some of the people he talked to said about the Jinchuriki, it's obvious he isn't accepted. Then we need to hurry and get him out of Suna as soon as possible. I will not let one of my brothers suffer the same treatment I did," Naruto said, a quiet rage building inside him as he remembered his life in Konoha. "Calm down, kid. Getting angry won't do anything for us right now," said the voice of Kurama. Naruto was surprised to hear the kitsun's voice since he'd been strangely quiet for a while. "You're right, Kurama. But what's been up lately? You haven't said much since we passed through the land of waterfalls a month back." "Yeah, sorry about that. I'd been thinking about something I felt while we were in that country." "Really, what is it?" "I wasn't sure at first, but now I know for certain. It was my brother Chome. I felt his presence, but it was diluted, which explains why it took me so long to recognize it. He is inside a Jinchuriki, but the seal holding him is suppressing most of his power." Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. They had been so close to one of his sibling Jinchuriki, and they didn't even know it. "Jiraiya-sensei, we have a lead on another one of the Jinchuriki," said Naruto, coming back to the present. Said sage looked at his student in surprise, but quickly shook off, simply passing it off as a Jinchuriki thing. "What do you have, Gaki?" "The Nanabai no Kabutamushi. It is sealed inside a Jinchuriki in Takigakure. Kurama said he felt a presence there when we passed through it a month ago but couldn't tell from what. Apparently the seal holding Chome, the Nanabai, is suppressing most of its power and keeping him from interacting with his Jinchuriki." Jiraiya placed his hand under his chin in concentration. You're probably right, cause if I'm not mistaken, the Shodai gave the Nanabai to Taki as a sign of good faith. Alright then, we now know the location of 2 of the Jinchuriki, but the question is, which one do we go after first?" "Shikaku's Jinchuriki. From what Kurama told me, he always was the most bloodthirsty and impulsive of the Bija. Suna isn't known for its Fuinjutsu expertise, so it's extremely possible that whatever seal is holding Shikaku isn't up to standard, and his personality may influence his host. If that's the case, we need to get him out as soon as possible, and you need to improve his seal." Jiraiya nodded in agreement. He may not have had a giant fox in his gut telling him about its siblings, but he had heard the legends of Shikaku's previous Jinchuriki. "Alright, Gaki, you're right about Suna and their skills in Fuinjutsu, so it's probably best to get them out first," said Jiraiya as he nodded to himself. "We'll leave in a week. That will give me time to work on a better seal for the Jinchuriki and give you time to hone your skills more. Now before we do anything else, I want to work with you on summoning a larger creature with your animal path. You have been able to summon numerous animals up to the size of a large bear, but nothing bigger. Naruto, if you were ever to get into a fight with someone who is capable of summoning something the size of, say, Gamabunta, you would be easily defeated." Naruto nodded in understanding, I know, sensei, but for some reason I just can't find the strength in me to summon something that size. Jiraiya closed his eyes as he contemplated this. This was a constant problem they kept running into whenever Naruto tried to summon something larger. They knew it couldn't have been because of a lack of chakra. Being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki and thanks to the chakra control granted by Rinnegan, he had an almost unlimited amount of chakra at his disposal. Alright, hopefully we can figure that out while we train, said Jiraiya as he made his way towards one of the many gaps in the floor. Naruto quickly followed and the two jumped down into the forest below and moved away from the hideout. This is far enough, Jiraiya said after they were about 200 yards from the hideout. Okay Naruto, you know what to do, try and summon a dog the size of one of the trees. Naruto closed his eyes for a few moments before they snapped open. His first level Rinnegan blazing, Naruto flashed through the familiar hand seals for a summoning. Slamming his right hand on the ground, Naruto focused as much chakra as he could into the jutsu, summoning jutsu. A large poof of smoke appeared in the clearing. When the smoke finally dissipated, it revealed a large two-headed dog as tall as Jiraiya. Damn it, why can't I summon anything larger than this? Jiraiya watched his student with a critical eye. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt something was off about the summoning. Normally when someone summons something, it requires a small blood sacrifice. But when Naruto summons something, there is no sacrifice needed. When he first started training with his animal path, we found out that the creatures he summons aren't real. They are just a manifestation his animal path creates. But wait, if the creatures are just manifestations, then extra chakra shouldn't be required no matter the size. Naruto, dispel him and come over here for a minute. Still grumbling to himself, Naruto obliged and walked over to his sensei while the dog dispelled in a poof of smoke. What is it, sensei? I think I just figured something out. When you summon something with the animal path, they aren't real animals, they are just manifestations created by your animal path. If I'm right, then when you summon something it isn't about chakra like a normal summoning, but it's about your animal path. Try focusing more on your Rinnegan and your animal path to summon and less about the chakra involved. Naruto thought about what his sensei said and nodded in agreement. It made sense. Since his version of a summoning was different than a normal one, it was possible that he had to approach it in a different manner. Walking back over to where he had summoned the dog, Naruto closed his eyes, but this time he focused on his Rinnegan and his animal path. Eyes snapping open again, Naruto flashed through the same hand signs and slammed his hand on the ground. Summoning jutsu, a large cloud of smoke filled the clearing and a few yards outside of it as well. Sensing something big coming, Jiraiya jumped out of the way just in time to avoid being crushed by a giant paw. Looks like he finally got the hang of it, thought Jiraiya as he waited for the smoke to clear. Slowly the smoke began to thin and Jiraiya could just make out the shadowy outline of a Gamabunta-sized creature. After the smoke had completely dissipated, Jiraiya had trouble picking his jaw up off the ground. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. Only Minato and Kushina's son would have the imagination to summon something like that. Before Jiraiya, with a beaming Naruto on its head, was a Kyuubi no Kitsune. Though this one was very different than the real one. Its fiery crimson red fur had been replaced by sun-kissed blonde fur that matched Naruto's own, and its blood-red slitted eyes had been replaced by a first-level Rinnegan. The Toad Sage was pulled from his thoughts by the sound of his student's voice. You were right, Jiraiya-sensei. All I had to do was focus on my Rinnegan and animal path, then poof, giant summons. Jiraiya shook his head at his student's rarely seen hyperactive attitude. Okay Gaki, dispel that fox before someone notices it and comes to investigate. Complying with his sensei's instructions, Naruto mentally ordered his summon to lower its head, allowing him to jump off before dispelling in a poof of smoke. Okay, now that you seem to have a grip on summoning larger animals, practice with controlling the size of the creatures and summoning as many as you can at once. I'm heading back to the hideout to begin working on the seal. Don't stay out more than a few hours, and if anything goes wrong summon that yellow Kyuubi again and I'll be there as soon as possible. Naruto nodded and watched as his sensei disappeared in a blur back to their impromptu home. Cracking his knuckles, Naruto smirked as he started training with his animal path. Let's see what else I can summon. A week later. Alright Gaki, time to get going, Jiraiya said as he waited for his student to get ready. The young blonde came out of his official room wearing the same black clothes he had taken to wearing and black traveling cloak. Ready sensei, said Naruto as the two jumped down to the ground below them. Acting before his sensei could even ask, Naruto went through hand signs with his Rinnegan activated, summoning jutsu. In a poof of smoke, two gray birds, large enough to ride, appeared in front of the two shinobi. Climbing onto the birds, Naruto gave them a mental command and the two birds shot into the air heading towards the desert region that was the land of wind. Naruto, Jiraiya called over the wind, when we reach Sunagakure I'm going to meet with one of my spies. While I'm doing that I want you to look around the village for any signs of the Jinchuriki. If you find him, do not approach him, find me and we'll plan our next move from there. Naruto couldn't hide his disappointment at not being allowed to talk to his brother Jinchuriki, but he understood the need for secrecy. Nodding his head, though reluctantly, Naruto continued to direct his summons in the direction of Suna. After a few hours of flying, the two shinobi had finally reached the edge of the deserts of the Land of Wind. Naruto, take us lower to the ground, we don't want to be spotted yet. Naruto outwardly nodded while mentally ordering his summons to lower themselves so they were skimming the surface of the sand. The effect was almost immediate. At the speeds the two birds were flying, a small sandstorm quickly formed behind them. In a flash of inspiration, Naruto made a few hand seals. Futon, great breakthrough, the young blonde blew out a medium-sized ball of compressed air into the sands ahead of them, effectively increasing the sandstorm around them. Jiraiya nodded in approval. Very good, Naruto, that was an excellent use of the terrain to our advantage. Since Suna is in the middle of the desert, sandstorms, no matter how small, have become a natural part of their lives. With this cover we'll be able to fly right into the village unnoticed. Naruto smiled at his sensei's praise and continued to direct the birds towards their destination. Sunagakure no Sato. The Yondaime Kazekage looked over his villager from his office window, admiring the beauty of it. The sun had reached its peak for the day and its light was being reflected perfectly off of the sand. The tiny particles reflected the light just so that the entire village seemed as though it were covered in glitter and shining as bright a star. The Kazekage frowned, however, as he remembered what this beauty hid. Behind this outward beauty was a very dark secret. Even Gaara was a failure. Can anyone truly control the power of the Shikaku? Thought the Kazekage as his thoughts drifted to his youngest child. He knew that his son Gaara, the current host of the Ichibi, was playing with his deceased wife's younger brother, Yashimaru. The Kazekage sighed as he thought about his brother-in-law. Other than his eldest child and only daughter Temari, Yashimaru was the only person in the village who didn't fear Gaara. That was why he had chosen him for the mission he was planning. Yashimaru was his right-hand man, and the commander of both the village's medical corps and Anbu corps. With his skill, he was the perfect match for the mission he had planned, but the Kazekage couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt in his heart at the pain it would cause his brother-in-law. Forgive me, Karura-chan, but this must be done to see if Gaara can indeed control the power of the Shikaku. Taking one last look over his village, he noticed a small dust cloud heading towards the village. Looks like another small sandstorm, nothing to raise an alarm over. With Naruto and Jiraiya. The two shinobi were on alert as they flew over the walls of Sunagakure, still under the cover of the sandstorm Naruto had created. Once they were clear of the outer walls, Naruto directed the two birds towards one of the scarce training grounds that had trees to shield their presence. Landing in one of the trees, Naruto and Jiraiya waited for the sandstorm to clear before quickly transforming themselves into average-looking civilians and making their way into the heart of Sunagakure. Alright, Naruto, I'm going to meet with my spy. Remember, if you find the Jinchuriki, do not approach him. If he is treated as badly as my spy said he was, it would draw too much attention if we approached him in broad daylight. We'll wait till the cover of night to make our move if we find him today. We'll meet up at this address, said Jiraiya as he handed Naruto a slip of paper. Now go enjoy yourself and look around, but remember not to talk to strangers. Naruto could tell that Jiraiya was acting. They had just reached the market district of Suna and they wanted to blend in as much as possible. Okay, Grandpa, I'll be careful, he said as he walked off and pretended to look around at all of the different stalls and shops. The transformed Toad Sage watched as his student acted like an average civilian child, and couldn't help the proud smile that was slowly spreading across his face. He's so young, yet already so adept at infiltration. Maybe I can finally pass on my skills as a spy master, he thought as he walked towards a local bar. With Naruto. The transformed blonde was walking around the village looking at everything in sight. To the world he looked like a normal child exploring his home, but inside he was on alert, waiting for any sign of his brother Jinchuriki. Where could he be? The blonde thought as he continued to walk around the village, unknowingly making his way to one of the rare playgrounds in the village. It's the demon, run! Naruto's head snapped up when he heard the shout. Picking up his pace, the Kyuubi Jinchuriki rounded a corner only to see a sight that made his blood boil. Kids, adults and families of all kinds and ages were running away from the playground as fast as their legs would carry them. In the middle of the playground, curled up in a ball with his shoulders shaking, was a young boy with spiky red hair, much like his own. Naruto slowly approached the redhead, subconsciously knowing that this boy was a brother to him. Some sand crunching under his feet jolted the redhead into a standing position, his sea-foam green eyes wide with fear. Kit, it's him, he's Shikaku's Jinchuriki. Naruto nodded at the voice in his head, his eyes never leaving the shacking body of his brother. So much for not approaching him, thought Naruto as he stopped in front of the redhead, his eyes showing nothing but happiness. Gaara watched this stranger with wary, scarred eyes. Whenever a stranger approached him, it usually ended in blood. Deep inside of Gaara's mind, Shikaku was watching this stranger with a critical eye. There was something about the boy that seemed familiar. He just couldn't put his claw on it. "I finally found you," said Naruto as he looked Gaara in the eye. Gaara couldn't explain it, but he felt he could trust this person. There was something in his eyes that he had never seen in anyone else. Understanding. This boy understood what it was like to be feared, to be hated, and to be betrayed. They were alike, they were brothers. "We have much to talk about, brother," Naruto said as his eyes flashed red with slits for the briefest of seconds. Gaara's eyes widened as his eyes flashed golden with a star-shaped pupil as a feeling of calmness washed over him. "Indeed we do, brother," said Gaara as the sand around him began to swirl and formed a dome around the two boys. Unknown to the two boys, someone had seen the little interaction. "I wonder who this young boy is. To be able to calm Gaara with a few words is something even I can't do," thought Yashimaru, Gaara's uncle. The Umbu/medical commander watched as the sand dome formed around the boys, preventing anything else from being heard. "Maybe he can do what no one thought possible. Maybe he can save Gaara from his inner demon. I don't know who you are, but I pray that you can help my nephew." With that parting thought, Yashimaru jumped towards the Kazekage's tower to meet with his brother-in-law and leader. "Brother," Naruto started, "my name is Naruto, and I am here to help you." "How could you possibly help me? I am nothing but a demon to this village," spat Gaara as he remembered all of the times he was nearly assassinated. The sand around Gaara's feet began to move around wildly, lashing out occasionally. Naruto sensed the growing rage inside the redhead, and quickly closed the gap between them and placed a hand on Gaara's shoulder. "Brother, you have to calm down. I know what it's like, all the pain you've suffered, and all of the hate you have felt, but you mustn't let it consume you, brother. You are stronger than they are. Do not become the demon they see you as, become something you can be proud of." Naruto's words seemed to have an instant effect on the Ichibi Jinchuriki. The sand around the two began to calm down and slowly lower itself back to the ground. Taking a step back from his fellow Jinchuriki, Naruto continued in a much softer and more understanding tone. "I can help you, brother. I can help free you from this nightmare of a village, but to do that you have to trust me." Gaara looked into Naruto's eyes again and saw the same understanding he had seen before. That was the clincher for Gaara. He knew that whatever this person had to say, he would listen. "I trust you. My name is Gaara, and I am the youngest child of the Yondaime Kazekage." Naruto's eyes widened slightly at this little piece of information. Well, this complicates things a little, Naruto thought. No kidding, kid. If he is the son of the Kage, getting him out of the village will be more difficult than any of us previously thought, said Kurama, causing Naruto nod in agreement. "Kid, place your hand on his head. I wish to speak with my little brother." Naruto inwardly nodded once again before returning his attention to Gaara. "It's a pleasure to officially meet you, Gaara. Now I believe Kurama has something he wants to talk to Shikaku about." With that, Naruto stepped forward and placed his right hand on Gaara's head, and before the redhead could react, the two boys found themselves in the middle of a white expanse. "Where are we?" asked Gaara as he looked around. All he could see was white that seemed to go on with no end in sight. The boys turned their attention at the sound of a deep and slightly crazed voice. "We are in a plane that exists outside of the human realm, a place that only Biju and Jinchuriki can enter." Behind Gaara was none other than the Ichibi no Shikaku himself. His sandy brown fur was accentuated by the dark blue vein-like markings that crisscrossed all over his body. His jagged, concave mouth was pressed into a frown as he watched something behind Naruto, his star-like pupil with dots surrounding it spinning wildly. "Why have you brought us here, Kurama?" said Shikaku, his annoyance clear in his deep voice. Now, Shikaku, that's no way to greet your eldest brother after all these years," said Kurama from behind Naruto, his slitted eyes staring into Shikaku's with no fear. Shikaku's frown deepened at his brother's remark but held his tongue. "But seeing as your temper is building, I guess we should get down to business. Shikaku, I have been visited by our father." The Tanuki's eyes widened in shock as he continued to listen. "He told me of a great evil hiding in this world and he wants us to stop it. But the only way that we even stand a chance against this evil is for the 9 Jinchuriki and Biju to fight as one. Brother, our father has put his trust in us to protect this world as he once did long ago. So I ask you, Shikaku, will you fight alongside us, fight to protect this world and fight to uphold our father's legacy?" Shikaku smirked as he answered, "Yes, I will fight alongside you, brother. I knew that one day our father would call on us. That is why I was always the most battle-crazed of us. I was training and preparing for the day we would be called upon." Kurama smirked at his youngest brother. Nothing ever seemed to truly surprise the Tanuki. "So when do we leave?" "That is actually up to the Kit and his sensei," said Kurama, turning his gaze down to the two confused Jinchuriki. "So Kit, when are we leaving?" Naruto thought for a moment before answering. "Tonight, once I tell Jiraiya-sensei what happened, and after he's done ranting about me ignoring his instructions, we'll come pick Gaara up and sneak out of the village." The other three beings in the white expanse nodded in agreement. Now that that's decided, let's get back to our world and put our plans into motion. Shikaku, until my sensei can repair the seal that is holding you inside of Gaara, I need you to restrain yourself and your power. The last thing we need right now is Gaara going into a rage if someone angers him. Shikaku pouted slightly at having to hold in his power instead of letting it run rampant like he was used to, but nodded in understanding. Good, now let's head back. And no sooner had Naruto finished, the two boys found themselves once again inside of Gaara's sand dome. I guess I shall see you tonight, brother, said Gaara, slightly disappointed at having to separate from his first true friend and brother. Naruto sensed Gaara's disappointment, and placed a comforting hand on the redhead's shoulder. Don't worry, Gaara, we shall see each other again soon, I promise. Gather whatever belongings you wish to bring with you and wait for us atop the highest balcony in the village. We'll find you and we'll make our escape from this hell of a village, Naruto said in a soothing voice that eased Gaara's worries. Giving each other one final nod, Gaara dropped the sand dome around them and the two took off in different directions, not wanting to attract attention. Sunagekure Kazakage's office. Yashimaru stood before his leader and brother-in-law, a strange sense of dread building in the pit of his stomach. Sitting at his desk, the Kazakage had an emotionless mask on his face, making it impossible to tell what he was feeling or thinking. This only served to increase the feeling of dread Yashimaru had. No matter what, he had always been able to read his brother-in-law like a book no matter how hard he tried to hide it. For him to not be able to read anything off of him was setting off warning bells inside his head. Yashimaru, I have a mission for you, said the Kazakage as he slowly rose from his seat and turned to look at his village. Yashimaru slowly walked to stand at his right side, his eyes glancing over at the park where Gaara had encountered Naruto. What is it, Kazakage-sama? He asked in a neutral voice, hiding his growing dread. The Kazakage sighed heavily as he turned to look at his right-hand man, knowing how much this was going to kill him inside. This is an S-rank assassination mission. You are to kill the target by any means necessary, do you understand? Hi, Kazakage-sama. Who is the target? Deep inside, though, he already knew who he was supposed to kill, and it was taking every ounce of his shinobi training to not lash out and refuse. Your target is Gaara. Your mission begins tonight. Yashimaru had to force himself to reply with all of the emotions he was feeling. Hi, Kazakage-sama. The Kazakage sighed as he watched his brother-in-law's reflection leave his office. Karura-chan, forgive me for this sin, but it is in village's best interest that Gaara be killed, thought the Kazakage as he gazed at the clear sky hanging overhead. With Naruto. Naruto, once again under his transformation, was walking through the streets of Sunagekure with his head swerving left and right. Damn it, sensei, the least you could have done was tell me where the hell you were meeting that spy at, cursed Naruto as he continued search the streets. After another hour of fruitless searching, Naruto was seriously considering just finding Gaara and making a break for it. Kid, did you forget that thanks to your perfect chakra control you can sense other chakra signatures? Naruto stopped mid-step and had to resist the urge to slap himself. How the hell had he forgotten that? Thanks, Kurama, thought Naruto as he closed his eyes and concentrated on the chakra signatures around him. He was surprised when he felt many of the chakra signatures coming from passing Suna ninja. Many of the Chunin and Jounin had chakra reserves that were barely acceptable for their rank. A Chunin that walked by him had especially low reserves that were about the same as a Konoha genin. No wonder Konoha is known as the strongest of the five. These ninja could probably barely hold their own against Konoha's elite Chunin. No kidding, kid, even you could probably fight most of these ninja and win one-on-one. Maybe, but back to business, got to find Jiraiya-sensei. With that, Naruto once again began to focus and extended his range as best he could. It took him a couple of minutes, but he finally found Jiraiya a couple of blocks away from him. That wasn't too hard. Jiraiya-sensei has by far the largest chakra reserves inside of this village. With the direction in mind, Naruto set off at a mild jog towards where he felt his sensei's chakra signature. Konohagakure no Sato Hokage Tower. The Sandaime Hokage looked over his village with a small smirk playing at the corner of his lips. Ever since Naruto's escape from the village, things had taken a drastic change from the norm. The once friendly and welcoming atmosphere that seemed to radiate from the very foundations of the village itself had been replaced by one of dread and intimidation. The civilians of the village, though, seemed almost blind to the change, still going about their daily lives. The shinobi, on the other hand, were a different story. In earlier years, the shinobi of the village had been like the civilians, easygoing and only relying on their training for missions and when called upon. Now, though, they were constantly on alert, almost as if they were expecting an invasion at any moment. This was due to the Sandaime's decree of what had happened during the incident with Naruto. The civilians were outraged and had called for the Hokage to have the boy be tracked down and killed for his crimes. The shinobi had been in shock at the fact that Naruto was the heir of the Sage of the Six Paths, the very man who taught their ancestors the ways of chakra. Needless to say, The civilians' cries were silenced when all of the ninja in the village sided with the Hokage. Not even the ignorant civilian council members were stupid enough to argue when they had an entire village of ninja opposing them. Now, with a more militaristic outlook, Sarutobi had ordered each and every one of his ninja to train themselves to the limit, and train they did. Genin were easily Chunin level by any other village's standards, while their Chunin looked more like Jounin, and their Jounin could defeat an entire squad of Umbu from another village. The Hokage himself had even begun his own training, quickly regaining the right to call himself the god of shinobi. The academy was not spared from the increased training either. Once he and his advisors had looked at the academy curriculum, the Sandaime couldn't change it fast enough. While they had retained some of the classes and lessons such as history, chakra theory and tactics, they had also incorporated much more to the academy curriculum. Children still began the academy at 6 years of age, but instead of slowly getting them used to what they were learning, they were thrown into it headfirst. For the first 2 years there, children were taught mostly general things such as taijutsu, history, basic tactics, basic chakra control, and how to use tools like shuriken and kunai properly. However, they also introduced them to other areas of ninja specialty such as kenjutsu, genjutsu, medical ninjutsu, tracking, and advanced ninjutsu. At the end of their second year, students were given the original graduation exam to see if they were ready to move on. Starting their third year, students were given the choice between 5 different fields to continue their education in: medical ninja, assassination, heavy assault, sensory and tracking, or intelligence. Sarutobi had taken Tsunade's original idea for having a specialized combat medic corps and taken it to the next level. By introducing students to these fields early on in their education, it allowed them to discover what would best suit them and helped increase their numbers in the areas. Each unique field also branched off into the other fields slightly to help improve the quality of students and give them some variety in terms of skill. Those who went into the medical field were also trained in sensing out even the faintest of chakra signatures to help save more lives. They were also trained slightly in assault. An enemy would always target the medic first, so they couldn't help heal their teammates. So to give field medics a better chance, they were trained extensively in taijutsu and some ninjutsu. The ones that continued in assassination were trained to the extreme in stealth. They also studied in the medical field on the anatomy of the human body so that they could kill their target quickly and efficiently. On top of that, they were trained in tracking so they could find their targets quickly and eliminate them before they had a chance to become a larger threat. Heavy assault students were trained mainly in taijutsu, kenjutsu, ninjutsu, and other skills that could help them in combat. They were trained slightly in medical ninjutsu so that if anything were to happen to them, they would be able to at least patch themselves up enough until they received treatment. Those that went into sensory and tracking were, for obvious reasons, trained to track down their targets and restrain or eliminate them. To accomplish that, they were also trained highly in assault so they could hold their own in a fight against their opponents. The branch off of this field was the sensory field, where students trained in homeland defense and protection. The ones that followed this path usually joined the barrier team that helped to watch over and maintain the village's security. The intelligence field mainly focused around getting information out of an enemy or prisoner by any means necessary. This often led students to join the torture and interrogation corps of the Umbu after they had graduated and had been promoted. Sarutobi was pulled from his thoughts by a knock on his door. Sitting down in his seat behind his desk, Sarutobi cleared his throat before speaking in a commanding voice, "Enter." The door opened to reveal his one-time rival and best friend, Danzo Shimura. "Ah, Danzo, what do you have to report?" Danzo spoke in his standard monotone. "The team you sent to the temple in the land of mountains to conduct further research has returned. They report that other than a few scrolls containing jutsu taught at the temple, there was nothing else of interest, or that was related to the Sage of the Six Paths." The Sandaime couldn't completely hide his disappointment at this, but he got over it quickly before moving on. "What about that other mission?" the Sandaime asked as he signaled his Umbu guards to leave. Danzo spoke up once they were alone. "Unfortunately, not as well as we had hoped, Hokage-sama. Kumo's security was tighter than we had anticipated, but my route team was able to bring back a few things of value as well as one of the main targets." With that, the old war hawk pulled out a sealing scroll and placed it on the desk in front of the Hokage. Unrolling the scroll revealed 3 holding seals. With a quick pulse of chakra into the scroll, the seals released with a poof of smoke. Placing the now empty scroll aside, Hiruzen looked over the items that now lay on his desk. On his left was a stack of at least 10 scrolls, each one bore the seal of the Reikage. "I'm impressed, Danzo. Your route were able to infiltrate Kumo far enough to access the Reikage's personal library." Not even bothering to look up at his old rival to see his reaction, the Sandaime continued looking over the items on his desk. In the center of his desk was 6-foot-long staff with a golden ring with 6 bangles dangling from it. So this is the very staff that the Sage of the Six Paths carried with him throughout his life. Picking up the staff, Sarutobi looked it over with a critical eye. "I must say it doesn't look like it has any kind of special gift like his 5 treasures." "I agree, Hokage-sama. However, we must remember that Kumo has an unusually high admiration for the sage and covet anything that has even the slightest link to him. The Sandaime nodded absently at his advisor's words, still inspecting the staff. True, my old friend, they admire him so much they would probably hang a tissue he used in a shrine for worship. The two veteran shinobi chuckled slightly at that, knowing full well that it was completely true. Placing the monk staff back onto his desk, Sarutobi looked over at the last item on his desk, one of the 5 targets the team had been sent to steal, the banana palm fan. It was unlike any other fan the Hokage had seen in his lifetime. The handle was wrapped in white tape with a silver ring on the tip. Attached to the ring were several snow-white feathers tipped with red at both ends. Before the Hokage could pick up the revered weapon, Danzo's voice stopped him. I wouldn't pick that up if I were you, Hokage-sama. The Hokage gave his old friend a confused look. Apparently each of the treasures consumes massive amounts of chakra just by simply picking one up. The team I sent into Kumo was comprised of 4 of my top infiltration specialists. Only 3 returned. The one who didn't was the one who picked up the fan. Sarutobi jerked his hand away from the fan handle, his eyes wide with surprise. So for one to wield the fan they must have exceptionally large chakra reserves. That complicates things a bit, but we can work our way around it later. For now, store the scrolls in my personal library and place these 2 in the high-security vault at the Umbu Armory, said Sarutobi as he resealed everything back into the scroll before handing it to Danzo, who left with a quick hi, Hokage-sama. Alone once again, Sarutobi turned around in his chair to once again look out over his village. Though I would have preferred to have more of the treasures, having one is still a boost to the village's power. Now I believe it is time to begin that other operation, thought the Hokage before summoning one of his Umbu back into the room. Prepare a tracking squad. I have a message that needs to be delivered and the recipient is very elusive. At once, Hokage-sama, said the Umbu before he shunshined away to complete his task. The Sandaime chuckled slightly as he thought about the possible response from this message would bring before signaling another Umbu to appear. Summon the Sannin. I have a mission for them. Sunagake no Sato. You have got to be kidding me, thought Naruto as he stood outside of a dimly lit bar. From the appearance of the place it looked like it was barely surviving off of the handful of customers he could see inside. Why the hell would Jiraiya-sensei be in a place like this? Although he said he was meeting a spy, not getting drunk. I agree, Kit, but you know what they say, the safest place to hide is in plain sight. Besides, who's going to suspect anyone who goes to this kind of place of being a spy? Sighing inwardly, Naruto nodded slightly as he walked into the dingy bar. Yeah, I guess you're right, Kurama, but still I expected something a little better than this. Before his tenant could respond, Naruto was stopped by 2 obviously drunk men standing in front of him. Hey kid, what the hell are you doing here? Looking for my grandfather. I think he wandered in here, said Naruto, keeping up his image as a normal 9-year-old civilian. The 2 men sneered at him through half-lidded eyes before the second one spoke up. Well, he's not here, so get out, you pathetic shrimp, before we make you. By now everyone in the bar was watching them, and none of them seemed to be moving anytime soon. Useless drunks, thought Naruto as he looked around at everyone's faces. Ignoring the 2 men in front of him, Naruto pushed past them and continued to walk into the bar. The 2 men just stared at his back in shock for a minute before it was quickly replaced by anger. Why, you snot-nosed little brat! Shouted the second drunk before he swung a fist at the back of Naruto's head. Before Naruto had a chance to counter, the man's fist was caught by a much larger hand. Naruto turned around to face the newcomer and smiled at who he saw. A middle-aged man with slightly graying hair with the build of an average civilian man held the man's wrist in a vice grip, while glaring daggers at the would-be attacker. Lay a hand on my grandson, and it will be the last thing you ever do, said the transformed Jiraiya as he tightened his grip on the man's wrist. Said man winced at the pressure being applied to his wrist, but his alcohol-induced anger was preventing him from seeing the obvious danger he was in. Stay out of this, you bastard! He screamed as he swung his other hand at Jiraiya. Easily catching the punch in his other hand, the Toad Sage pulled both arms down while raising his knee to meet them. A sickening crunch resounded throughout the bar as both of the man's arms were broken clean in 2. You were warned, said Jiraiya before turning his attention to the other man who had been threatening Naruto. Do you want to try something like your friend here? The man quickly shook his head before fleeing the bar. Come on, Gaki, I've taken care of my business here, said Jiraiya as he motioned for Naruto to follow him out of the bar. The 2 shinobi continued down the road for a few minutes before Jiraiya led them into a nearby hotel. After renting a room for the night, Jiraiya sealed the room with a couple of seals and turned to his godson. So Gaki, did you find any information on the Ichibi Jinchuriki? More than information, I found him, said Naruto after he cancelled his transformation. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow in mild surprise, but his eyes narrowed slightly when he noticed Naruto's slightly sheepish look. Naruto scratched the back of his head as he answered his sensei's silent question. Well, you know how you told me not to approach him if I found him, At Jiraiya's nod he continued, "Well, I kind of talked to him." Jiraiya just stared at him for a little longer before sighing slightly. "Oh well, I guess I should have seen this coming. Anyway, what did you two talk about?" Naruto spent the next few minutes recapping his and Gaara's conversation in detail to Jiraiya, who would nod occasionally. When he had finished his explanation, Naruto watched as his sensei silently thought over what he had said. "Alright," Jiraiya said after a few minutes of silence, "we'll meet up with him tonight and make our escape. Once we're clear of the village's range, we'll head back to the hideout. Once we're home, we'll plan out our next move and go from there. For now, though, we need to rest. We don't want to risk having to fight someone when we're tired." Naruto nodded in understanding and sat back on his bed and was soon asleep, shortly followed by Jiraiya. Later that night. "You ready, Gaki?" asked a shadowed figure with long spiky hair to the shorter figure next to him. Said figure closed his eyes and focused before they shot open, revealing his first-level Rinnegan. "Yeah, it's time we freed my brother from this hell of a village," said a young voice before the figure took off, jumping across the roofs of buildings towards the highest point in the village. The taller figure was quick to follow, easily catching up to his smaller companion. "We'll get him out of this village, Gaki, don't worry," he said as the two of them continued across the roofs of the village. With Gaara same time. Gaara stood atop the roof of the tallest building in Senegakure, waiting for his brother Jinchuriki to arrive. "I wonder what it will be like to travel the world," thought Gaara, his excitement showing even in his thoughts. All he had ever known in his short life was the harsh treatment and cold stares of the people of Suna. "You'll soon find out, Gaki. Oh, I can't wait till you get older and start killing everyone that comes our way. Oh, it will be a glorious bloodbath." Gaara merely raised an eyebrow at his tenant's words. In the hours that followed his talk with Naruto, Shikaka had kept his word and restrained his power from continuously flowing into Gaara's chakra network. With his Biju's chakra no longer interfering with his own, Gaara had felt truly peaceful for the first time in his short. "Is fighting and killing all you ever think about, you crazy pile of sand?" thought Gaara with a small smirk. "Watch yourself, cub, or I'll come out there and show you what sand can really do," threatened Shikaka half-heartedly. Though he would never admit it to anyone, he enjoyed a good verbal fight every once in a while, and he was excited his Jinchuriki might actually be able to give him one. Yeah, just keep talking," thought Gaara before a wall of sand rose up behind him, stopping a hail of kunai from reaching him. What the Gaara's voice trailed off as a person jumped out from the shadows. The red-haired Jinchuriki looked his attacker over, noticing they were wearing a white cloth over their face with a small gap for them to see through. They were also wearing the standard attire for a Suna Jounin, a dark brown long-sleeved shirt with matching pants and sandals, a tan flak jacket with shoulder guards and 6 pockets lining the bottom of the jacket. They also wore a white turban like many other Suna shinobi, as well as dark brown fingerless gloves with metal plating. Their Suna headband was wrapped around their forehead, the metal gleaming in moonlight. Before Gaara could do anything, his attacker pulled out 2 more kunai and lunged at Gaara, fully intent on ending his young life. Like every other time someone had tried to assassinate him, the sand around Gaara reacted and blocked the attack before 2 spears formed and tried to impale the attacker. Said person jumped away from the spears, just barely avoiding being impaled. Looking at the young redhead in front of him, the disguised Yashimaru couldn't help but smile slightly at the sand protecting the child. "Karura, even in death you continue to protect your son. I'm sorry, but I must complete my mission. I only hope that when I see you in the afterlife, you can forgive me for this sin, because I will never forgive myself." Pulling another handful of kunai from his hip pouch, Yashimaru tossed them into the air while channeling his chakra to his hands. The kunai he threw quickly righted themselves in midair, with the rest of the kunai on the roof raising into the air and surrounding Gaara. "Forgive me," Yashimaru whispered before swinging his hands forward, launching all of the kunai at Gaara. Before the blades could reach him, and even before Gaara's sand could react, an invisible force knocked all of the blades away. "Shinra Tensei," a voice whispered from behind the two. Gaara looked over towards the voice and came face to face with his brother Jinchuriki, Naruto Uzumaki. "Attacking my brother was a big mistake," said Naruto before Yashimaru was forced to dodge as a fist passed over his head. He wasn't, however, able to dodge the kick that connected with his chest, sending him flying into the railing. Coughing up some blood that stained the cloth over his face, Yashimaru looked up only to be met with the face of Jiraiya of the Sannin. "Jiraiya of the Sannin, he is that boy's sensei?" thought Yashimaru in shock before he noticed something even more surprising. Gaara's sand wasn't reacting to the two of them. In fact, it started moving around the two of them as it did Gaara, granting them its protection. "Karura, you already trust these two enough to grant them your protection?" thought Yashimaru in surprise as he slowly made it to his feet. "If you are willing to trust them, then I suppose I will as well." With that thought, he reached up and pulled the cloth away from his face, shocking Gaara in the process. "Yashimaru, but why?" asked Gaara, his shock clear for all to see. He couldn't believe that the one person in the village that cared for him, his own uncle, had tried to kill him. I'm sorry, Gaara. I was ordered to kill you by the Kazekage because you didn't show any signs of being able to control the Shikaku's power. But right now that's not important. What is important is getting you to safety, Gaara, said Yashimaru, completely letting his guard down. Naruto still looked at Yashimaru in suspicion, not willing to trust the man that had just tried to kill his fellow Jinchuriki so easily. Jiraiya, though, who knew of Yashimaru's relation to the boy thanks to his informant, easily trusted the man's word, having been in a similar situation once before. Gaara, you must leave with these two, otherwise your father will send more people to kill you. He's right, said Jiraiya. If we want to get away without any interference, our window is small and closing quickly. Yashimaru, if you were ordered to kill Gaara, it's also safe to assume that he will be checking in at some point if you don't report back. Yashimaru nodded in agreement with Jiraiya's analysis. You're right, if you don't leave now, you may not have a chance of escaping without a war. Though Naruto was still unwilling to completely trust the man, he was right. If they didn't escape now, they might not be able to at all. Noticing his sensei turning to him about say something, he beat him to it by going through a very familiar set of 5-hand seals. Slamming his right hand on the roof of the building, Naruto called out, summoning jutsu. In a poof of smoke, 3 birds exactly like the ones he and Jiraiya had ridden into the village appeared. Jiraiya couldn't help but smirk at his student's ability to read his thoughts before he even had to voice them. Alright, you two, it's time we got out of here, said Jiraiya as he jumped onto the bird nearest him. Gaara walked up to his uncle and couldn't stop the few tears that spilled from his sea-foam green eyes. I'll miss you, Yashimaru, he said, his voice almost cracking. Yashimaru smiled and bent down to be at the same level as his nephew. I know, Gaara, and I'll miss you too, but you have to be strong. I know you will become a powerful shinobi one day, and when that day comes, I want you to promise me you'll come back and restore this village's honor, okay? With tears running down his face, Gaara wrapped his uncle in a hug and nodded into his shoulder. I promise. When I'm strong enough, I'll come back and bring honor back to Suna. Yashimaru smiled as he hugged his nephew for what he knew would be the last time. Breaking the hug, Gaara gave his uncle one more small smile before jumping onto the last remaining bird. With a mental command, the 3 birds quickly shot into the sky and vanished into the darkness of the night, never to be seen again for years. Yashimaru watched as the 3 birds flew away from the village with a small smile, while a few tears fell from his blue eyes. I'm sorry, Gaara. I wish I could have seen the powerful shinobi you would have become, but I must make sure you're safe. Well, sis, I guess I'll be seeing you soon, thought Yashimaru before he wrote a quick note that looked like it was written in the middle of a fight. His task done, he took one last look at where the 3 rogue shinobi had disappeared before he detonated the multitude of paper bombs on his chest. The explosion rocked a small portion of the village and quickly drew the attention of every shinobi and kunoichi in the vicinity, as well as the Kazekage. The sight that greeted them was one that would forever be ingrained into their mind. The body that was once Yashimaru, the feared and respected head of the Umbu and Medical Corps, was now no more than burnt remains with pieces of charged skin peeling away and revealing the reddened muscle underneath. Kazekage-sama! Shouted one of the jounin that had arrived at the scene, holding a slightly burnt piece of paper. Taking the paper from his subordinate, the auburn-haired Kazekage looked the paper over and found 2 simple words that confirmed what he had hoped would happen. 2 simple words that told him his right-hand man's sacrifice wasn't in vain. Mission accomplished. Land of Woods. The 3 shinobi had just dismounted Naruto's avian summons and were making their through the forests of the Land of Woods. They had decided to land a fair distance away from their new home so that if anyone had seen them flying in or had somehow tried to tail them, they wouldn't know exactly where their base of operations was. They were about 50 yards out away from what Naruto had dubbed the main tree and entrance to their base, when Jiraiya decided it was time to get things started. Alright, you two, before we can do anything else, we need to check Gaara's seal and make what adjustments are necessary. But first, Gaara, I need you to tell me about anything that even remotely seems related to Shikaka being inside of you, said the Toad Sage, all traces of his easygoing nature gone, replaced by that of someone who had lived through things most couldn't even imagine. Gaara took a moment to answer, a thoughtful expression on his face. Well, the only things that I can think of would be the sand that protects me whenever I'm in danger, and the fact that I can't sleep. Wrong, said the demonic voice of Shikaka from inside Gaara's head. Wait, what? Trailed off Gaara as his eyes glazed over and he stopped mid-step. Jiraiya looked at the still red head and was about to say something before his student cut him off. Don't bother Jiraiya-sensei, he's talking to Shikaka in his mindscape right now. There's only one way to reach a Jinchuriki when they're in their mindscape, and that's for another Jinchuriki to bring them to a place where only Jinchuriki and Bijou can enter. For now we just have to wait for him to finish and hope no one shows up to fight. Whenever one of us is like this, we're completely defenseless. Jiraiya could only nod in understanding, despite being one of the most informed and knowledgeable people in the elemental nations. his knowledge on Jinchuriki was rather limited. "I guess we better get comfortable then," said Jiraiya as he sat down on a nearby root. Naruto nodded in agreement, and moved to lean against a tree a couple of feet away from his brother Jinchuriki. Gaara's Mindscape. The red-haired Jinchuriki slowly opened his eyes, and to his surprise, he was no longer standing in the middle of a dense forest. Instead, he found himself in the middle of a desert that seemed to have no end, even by desert standards. But what caught his attention was the sandstorm that was raging not 3 feet from him, the sandstorm that looked more like a sand twister with a dark shadow hidden in the center. His suspicions about what the twister was confirmed when he saw the dark shadow move around and slightly crazed voice spoke from behind it. "Welcome to your mind, pup. I bet you're probably wondering why I have brought you in here, right?" Gaara's only response was to nod a yes. He was too busy trying to get over his surprise at his current situation. "Well, it has to do with what that white-haired toad summoner asked you. You see, the answer you gave him concerning your sand defense is only partially true. While my presence and powers amplify your defense, it is not the sole reason why you have it. I'm not too certain what the source of your defense is myself, but if I had to make an educated guess, it has something to do with your mother." Gaara, who had managed to get over his shock, was thrown back into it faster than any futon jutsu could. For as long as he could remember, he had been told by his uncle that his mother had loved him, even if she could never be there to prove it. Now that Shikaku had brought up the idea, he remembered once when he was 5 that Yashimara had told him that he believed that the sand that came to his aid was the will of his mother protecting him. "I see you remember now. Your uncle didn't realize how close to the truth he was when he said the sand was controlled by your mother's will." Gaara, who had been too surprised to respond, finally seemed to find his voice. "But how do you know you're right about this?" he asked, his voice betraying his hidden fear. Fear at what Shikaku said being wrong, fear at losing possibly the only link he had to his mother. Shikaku looked at his Jinchuriki, and for the first time in over a millennia, sympathy showed through in his eyes. He may have been the most battle-crazed of the Bijou, but he also knew what it was like never knowing the love of a mother. He and his siblings may know how they came to be and what, for lack of a better word, their mother was, but that still didn't help fill the void a mother's absence creates. "I know I'm right because I was awake when I was first sealed into you, while you were still inside your mother's womb," said Shikaku as his eyes shined from behind the sand veil, showing Gaara his memory of the time. Flashback. "Screw this accursed tea kettle. I swear one of these days I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to kill the son of a bitch who did this." These were the thoughts of the currently imprisoned Ichibi no Tanuki, after yet another failed attempt at escaping from his current prison. For years he had been trapped in the tea kettle, ever since his last Jinchuriki had lost control and he had gone on a rampage. He knew from past experience, and from what happened to his siblings, that he would be sealed into Antherhost in hopes of them being able to control his powers. "Like anyone could truly control my powers, the only way a human would even have a chance at controlling my power was if they were born of the sand's truest love. I still don't know what the hell you meant by that, father, but oh well." A few days passed and things went as they normally would for the Bijou. Try and break out, fail to break out, and curse his prison. It was now January 19th, though Shikaku didn't know that, and unknown to the Bijou his current prison was being taken away to perform a new sealing. Okay, one more try, thought Shikaku before something happened that he was all too familiar with. A glowing green seal appeared above him where the tea kettle's lid was located, and began to spin around causing an unnatural wind to pick up around him. "No, I won't be sealed inside another human," thought the Tanuki, but it was too late. The seal abruptly stopped spinning and opened slightly, drawing him to it. He lost his physical form and was forced into his pure chakra state as the seal continued to absorb his power. Outside the seal, same time. "Is everything ready, Chiyo-sama?" asked the Yondaime Kazekage as he stood next to one of his elders in an operating room. Doctors ran around the room, making sure the equipment was working and occasionally writing things down on their clipboards. In the middle of the large room, lying on the lone operating table, was a woman with shoulder-length sandy brown hair. Her naturally kind face was flush red as she breathed deeply, a noticeable bulge in stomach, a sure sign she was pregnant. She was Karura, wife to the Kazekage and mother to a 3-year-old Temari and a 2-year-old Kankuro. Chiyo, an elderly woman in her late 50s with gray hair tied into a tight bun, nodded a yes to the village leader's questions. "Yes, everything is ready. The Shikaku's power has already been absorbed into the seal and is ready for transfer." "Good, then begin the sealing," said the Kazekage as he moved to the foot of his wife's operating table. Chiyo nodded once again, signaling for the doctors to stand back so they wouldn't get in the way. The doctors were quick to comply, none of them willing to risk angering one of the honored siblings. Once everyone was out of her way, she pulled a brush from her sleeve and dipped it into a bowl filled with blood. "Prepare yourself, Karura. Once the seal is drawn, I will push the Shikaku's chakra through you and into your child," said Chiyo, her voice not betraying any of her emotions. Karura took one last deep breath before nodding and understanding, mentally slowing her chakra so it wouldn't interfere with the sealing. Chiyo didn't waste any time in drawing the seal over the pregnant kunoichi's abdomen, a simple circle with two smaller circles on either side of the circle's edge. Inside the small circle on the right was the kanji for stay, while the kanji for sit was drawn in the circle on the left. In the center of the main circle, the kanji for wind was drawn with 4 small dots surrounding it. With the seal complete, Chiyo put away her brush and began going through a long chain of hand seals, ending with the dog seal. Fuin Jutsu, Windhound Sealing Jutsu. The second the words left her lips, the seal on Karura's abdomen began glowing a similar shade of green to the seal that absorbed Shikaku. At the same time, the same seal that absorbed Shikaku appeared on the tea kettle and released a stream of sandy brown chakra that was immediately drawn into the new seal that would hold it. A few minutes passed before the stream of chakra finally ended and the rest of it was absorbed into the seal. Once the last of the chakra was sealed, the seal started to spiral in on itself before vanishing entirely. Chiyo let out a deep sigh at the concentration and effort the sealing had required. It's done. The child in Karura's womb is now the newest Jinchuriki of the Shikaku. The yondaime nodded absent-mindedly. His attention was drawn as one of the machines that were monitoring the pregnancy started acting up. "Report, what is happening?" demanded the Kazekage as the doctors rushed around checking every machine's readings and making what adjustments were needed. "Kazekage-sama, the sealing must have affected the pregnancy. Karura-sama is going into labor right now," shouted one of the doctors that was checking Karura over. "Sir, if we don't act quickly, it is likely we may lose both Karura-sama and her child." "Then what are you waiting for? Get to work!" shouted the yondaime Kazekage as he stepped back and let the medics do their job. Inside the seal. "Ugh, I always hated when they do that," thought Shikaku as his chakra condensed back into his corporeal form. Taking in his new surroundings, he was surprised to find nothing but a dark expanse. "What the hell is this?" thought Shikaku as he sent a small portion of his chakra to probe the mind of his new host. What he found surprised him. He was sealed into the body of a baby that wasn't even born yet. But what he could tell from the memories of the women carrying the child was that his own father had ordered the sealing, some old hag had performed it, and they used the same exact seal that was used on his previous Jinchuriki. Seriously? These humans need to learn something new if they're using the same seal they used on my last Jinchuriki. Oh well, I drove that one insane, I can drive this one insane. Unfortunately for him, his thoughts were cut short as a never-ending desert appeared around him and a sand twister formed around him. What thought the giant tanuki before a symbol flashed in front of him for a brief moment. It can't be, thought Shikaku in surprise. It had only happened for a brief moment, but it would forever be ingrained into his memory. The symbol that appeared before him was a kanji, the kanji for love. Outside the seal a few minutes ago. "It's small premature from the looks of it. Will it truly be able to handle it?" asked the Kazekage as he looked at the red-haired baby that was just barely larger than the hands holding him. Chiyo nodded slightly as she looked at the child with a passive stare. "He is compatible." She took a quick glance around the room at the doctors working endlessly at their stations. "This is the third child and the first compatible one. We must raise this child with great care." Before the Kazekage had a chance to respond, a raspy, strained voice made itself known. "Show me my baby's face." The yondaime spun around to face his wife, a look of worry clearly visible on his normally impassive face. "Karura! Are you all right?" he shouted as the doctor holding his newborn son moved to set the baby down so his mother could see him. The exhausted kunoichi slowly turned her head to look at the small form that was placed next to her head. "What a small, feeble child," she managed to say in between her ragged breaths. The Kazekage's attention was drawn from the mother-son scene as one of the doctors whispered to him. Karura-sama's heart rate is rapidly falling. Before he had a chance to finish though, he was cut off by an obviously angered Kazekage. "Do something about it. Quickly!" He was about to start barking orders to the rest of the doctors and medics before the voice of his wife once again cut him off. "No matter what happens, I'll always protect you, Gara." The yondaime Kazekage could only look on as his wife brought her hands up to surround her son in a protective manner, as she slowly took her last breaths. The Kazekage looked on as his beloved wife died with her arms still wrapped around Gara protectively. Over the continuous sound of the heart monitor, and the shouts of doctors and medics trying to resuscitate the deceased mother, the Kazekage heard his wife's last words echo in his mind once more. "No matter what happens, I'll always protect you, Gara." Flashback end. Gara stood rooted in place, tears rolling down his face as he took in what he had just learned. "And my mother truly loved me? I was loved at one time?" Shikaku nodded his head from behind his prison. "Yes, and not just then, even now your mother's love protects you from within the sand." For the first time in his life, Gara let a true smile grace his face as he shed tears of joy. He had been loved. His mother truly loved him, and even in death she continued to protect and love him. Shikaku watched as his Jinchuriki let loose all of the pent-up emotion he had been forced to endure in his short life. Unbeknownst to his Jinchuriki though, the kanji for love slowly appeared just above where his left eyebrow was supposed to be. It seems that the one born of the sand's truest love has finally found himself. It seems you were right once again, father. Maybe, just maybe, this pup will be the one to unlock the true extent of my power. I do not know what the future holds for us now, but I do know that no matter what, I will always stand by you, Gaara. Jiraiya and Naruto were still waiting for Gaara to come out of his mindscape so they could continue on to the hideout. Hey Gaki, how long does something like this usually take? Asked a slightly annoyed Jiraiya as he readjusted himself for what felt like the 100th time. Kami, if every secret about Jinchuriki is like this, then I'm not sure I want to find out about the rest of them. Naruto shrugged his shoulders from his place against a tree. It depends. Usually a conversation with one's bijou is instantaneous in the real world, even if they spent the equivalent of hours talking. However, there are certain cases where the time spent in one's mindscape is the same amount of time that passes in the real world. That usually happens when the bijou shows the host something like a memory, which is probably what Shikaku is doing for Gaara. Jiraiya nodded in understanding and was about to ask another question, but something caught his eye. Looking over towards the newest Jinchuriki of their little group, he was surprised to see a red kanji slowly appearing above Gaara's left eye. What the hell? He asked aloud, bringing Naruto's attention towards his fellow Jinchuriki as well. That's new. It must have something to do with what they were talking about. No sooner had Naruto finished than did Gaara's eyes lose their glazed look. Ugh man, that's going to take some getting used, said Gaara as he wobbled slightly from the sensation of returning to one's body. Once he managed to right himself, he looked at his two traveling companions, and saw them looking at him strangely, specifically the left side of his forehead. What? Naruto was the first to respond. Where'd the tattoo come from, Gaara? What tattoo? Asked Gaara as he rubbed his forehead. You won't be able to feel it, you knucklehead. It's a part of your skin, said the voice of Shikaku from inside his head. The tattoo is the kanji symbol for love. If I had to hazard a guess, it is most likely the physical manifestation of your mother's love for you. Hey Gaara, you okay? Asked Naruto, shaking his brother Jinchuriki slightly. Yeah, said Gaara as he shook his head slightly. Shikaku just told me that the tattoo on my forehead is probably the physical manifestation of my deceased mother's love for me. Jiraiya sat in contemplation for a moment at this new revelation. It's entirely possible. With everything I've seen in this world, it wouldn't surprise me. Naruto and Gaara nodded in understanding while the Toad Sage stood up and dusted himself off. Well then, if you two are ready, let's back to the hideout and get Gaara's seal fixed up. With that, the three rogue shinobi continued on towards their new home in moderate silence. Kanehigakure Hokage Tower. You summoned us, Hokage-sama? Asked a voice as the door to the Hokage's office was opened. The Hokage looked from some papers he was going over and couldn't help the smirk that crossed his lips. Before him stood three of the most powerful ninja Konoha had at its disposal. The first one to enter was a young man in his early 20s that had a very unique hairstyle. His silver hair seemed to defy gravity itself as it stood up on his head, while leaning to his left side slightly. He wore the standard issue shinobi garb for all active Konoha shinobi, a navy blue, long-sleeved shirt with red swirl symbols on the shoulders, and matching navy blue pants and shinobi sandals with white tape wrapped around his ankles. He also wore a dark green flak jacket that had 3 scroll pouches on both sides of the chest. The flak jacket also had a raised neck guard with extra padding over the shoulders, and a red swirl pattern on the back. His face and neck were hidden by a face mask that covered everything from his nose down. His headband was slanted down over his left eye, and rounding off his outfit were navy blue, fingerless gloves with metal plating on the back. The second one to enter didn't seem to have any sense of fashion, if his outfit was anything to go by. A green jumpsuit covered a well-built frame with orange striped leg warmers and an unzipped standard Konoha jounin flak jacket. His headband's normal blue cloth was replaced by a red one and wrapped around his waist like a belt. His hairstyle didn't help him much in the looks department either. Black hair cut into a bowl style with thick, bushy eyebrows made him look like an even weirder individual. The last of three was by far the most normal looking out of all of them. The man wore the standard navy uniform of a Konoha ninja with the sleeves rolled up halfway, a jounin flak jacket, regular shinobi sandals and a normal headband. Around his waist was a sash with the kanji for fire on it, signifying he was once a member of the 12 guardian ninja that protected the fire daimyo. He also had white tape wrapped around his upper arms with a pair of bangles on his wrists. They were Kakashi Hatake, aka Kakashi or the Sharingan, Might Guy, Konoha's sublime green beast, and Asuma Sarutobi, son of the Sandaime Hokage. They were 3 of the most powerful shinobi currently in Konoha's ranks. They were also the newest generation of Sannin. Yes, Kakashi, I did, said the Sandaime as he leaned forward on his elbows. I have a mission for the three of you. Asuma raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. A mission that requires all three of us? What the hell do you want us to do, Pops? Sarutobi shook his head slightly at his son's refusal to refer to him with his title, but it was a slightly refreshing change from the norm. Well, to put it simply, I need the three of you to bring someone back to the village. He is a former shinobi of Konoha that went rogue when I foolishly tried to have my former students kill him. Only now do I realize what a mistake it was trying to kill him. The experiments he was conducting may have been considered inhumane by some, but they could lead to some of the greatest breakthroughs the shinobi world has ever seen. I believe you three are familiar with this page in the bingo book, Hiriko, the wielder of the Chimera Jutsu. Kakashi's lone eye widened slightly at this piece of information. Hiriko, if he is the target Hokage-sama, then convincing him to return to the village will be very difficult, and will most likely end in bloodshed. The Hokage nodded in agreement with Kakashi's assessment. That may be true, but certain circumstances have been met, and it should be easier to convince Hiriko to return to us. For one, all of my former students have fled the village. With this we can promise him a chance at revenge for what they tried to do to him. Second, is that I have written a high-priority letter that has been sealed with a sample of Hiriko's chakra and blood. The letter is an apology for past actions, and a promise that if he will return, any experiment he wishes to conduct will have the backing of the Hokage and elders. Guy, who had been strangely quiet since he entered the office, finally decided to speak up. Any experiment, Hokage-sama? Doesn't that seem a little risky? What if he decides to experiment on Konoha shinobi? Kakashi and Asuma both nodded in agreement. Part of the reason Hiriko was targeted for assassination was because it was feared that he would use his kinjutsu on fellow Konoha shinobi. Once again the Hokage nodded in understanding. It may seem a little risky, but that is why we will be supplying Hiriko with his test subjects. Any captured foreign ninja that have already been tortured for everything they know will be the main source of the test subjects. We will also offer him free reign of Konoha's maximum security prison to select any promising subjects, as well. Also, as I have written in the letter, all of his experiments will have to be approved beforehand, by myself and the elders, but other than that, he will have free reign to conduct his experiments. This seemed to placate the worries of the new Sannin as Kakashi stepped forward to take the letter the Hokage had written for Hiriko. We'll leave immediately, Hokage-sama, said Kakashi after he pocketed the scroll. Asuma and Guy nodded in agreement, and the three of them left the office shortly after that to begin their mission. The Sandaime sat there for a moment before turning towards one of the darkened corners of his office. You can come out now, Danzo. Your skills are as sharp as ever, Horizon, said Danzo as he stepped out of the shadows. The Hokage chuckled slightly before leaning back in his chair to relax. Our shinobi forces aren't the only ones who have been training. Indeed, but that is not why I am here, said Danzo as he took a seat across from his rival. Sarutobi raised an eyebrow in curiosity, silently asking Danzo to continue. While I do not question your choice to have the Sannin retrieve Hiriko, I am curious why you chose Hiriko over, say, Orochimaru. An understandable curiosity, my friend, but the reason I chose to have Hiriko retrieved instead of Orochimaru is simple. Orochimaru felt betrayed by me directly. Even if I were to extend this same offer to him, and he actually accepted it, there would always be a lack of trust for my past actions. Hiriko, on the other hand, while he does know I was the one to order his execution, his closest friends, my former students, were the ones who committed the actual act. His anger lies with them for betraying him in such a way. Also, he was always jealous of them for their skill and power because he wasn't born with anything that could help him become as strong as them. His jealousy and anger towards them will be his motivation to return to the village, and the offer of us backing his experiments is just the icing on the cake to sweeten the deal. Danzo nodded in understanding and couldn't help but smirk at his rival's newly discovered manipulative side. Sarutobi returned the smirk, and the two of them continued to plan for the inevitable future that was to come. Their conversation was interrupted a few hours later by a knock on the door. Enter, commanded the Hokage as the door opened to reveal his secretary. Forgive me, Hokage-sama, I wasn't aware you were having a meeting with Danzo-sama, said the secretary as she bowed to the two shinobi. It's alright, what was it that you needed, Yuki-san? Said the Hokage, waving off her apology. The tracking squad you requested has arrived, Hokage-sama. They await your orders, said the secretary as she looked at her clipboard. Very well, send them in, ordered the Hokage. Yuki bowed once more before leaving, while Danzo moved to stand behind his leader. As soon as Yuki left, the door opened once more, admitting 4 new arrivals. The first one was a tall, well-built man with a slightly tanned complexion. He wore the standard outfit of a Konoha jounin, consisting of a dark green flak jacket and a black suite underneath with the sleeves ripped off. In addition to the standard jounin uniform, he also wore a white wolf's pelt like a coat that showed off the scars on his arms. His wild, silverish gray hair was pulled into a ponytail at the base of his skull that reached a little past his shoulders. His pupils resembled those of a wolf more than they did a human. His elongated canines jutted out from his upper lip slightly, and on his cheeks were the distinctive red fangs of the Inuzuka clan. On his left was his canine partner, a pure white dog that reached his waist in height and at first glance could be easily mistaken for a wolf. The dog's red, slitted eyes shone with the superiority and strength of an alpha. They were Ukami Inuzuka and his partner Shiramaru, the head of the Inuzuka clan. The next one to enter was Tsum Inuzuka and her own partner, Kuramaru. Tsum had a very animalistic look about her, much like her husband. She had long, spiky, untamed brown hair,